shows the
Just in case you all were wondering, we're being recorded.
shows the area in yellow. And let me see here. And so after we held a
Hold on. Can you make the thing go away?
oh, it's not showing on my screen. Let me see. Stop share. Let me just stop.
There we go. We're in good shape now. Oh, man, it went
dang
away.
Okay, let's try this again. We'll go right back to it. No problem. Okay. During discussions and further review of what the developer supplied to the Planning Commission with regard to participation from the Marriotts, we thought it best to exclude their land from this rezone proposal because they aren't willing to sign the development agreement that includes the standards. And so what we'd like to do is consider today's proposal as just this half that's shown in red, excluding the area in yellow. And so the developer has been doing some work with the Marriotts, and they have been able to gather some documentation from the Marriotts that would indicate that they do have access across the Marriott property for an emergency egress, as well as area to run that sewer line. And so that should be helpful. One other thing I'd like to point out is that the Marriotts at this point, they would allow for a single access across their land, which would then in turn allow the Longhorn Estates to develop up to 45 lots. So once they reach that 46th lot, they have to actually create another access. And our hopes is by the time we get to that point, there would be another connection to the east. We'll look over the development plan, and you can see that they have a road stubbing eastward, and with some interest, I don't know how much interest that still exists, but there was some interest in developing that property to the east, where there could potentially be an emergency egress eastward as well. And so that kind of covers some of the details there. And going to the next slide. See, hopefully the internet is okay. So within this development proposal, we've included quite a lofty list of standards, and the reason why we've done that is because the complexities involved with this area being that it's raw ground, it's rural, but you also have the Vaquero Village, which there's several subdivision improvements that were never completed. Some that were completed weren't done to a standard. And so that's primarily why we have so many standards written into this development agreement. You can see here we have the latest plan from the Longhorn Estates. Their plan shows roads extending all the way to 7500 West. Obviously, that wouldn't take place. You would still have a similar plan. It would just be cut in half, and you would have roads stubbing to the Marriott's property. So the plan would look the same, except it would be cut in half. The planning is pretty happy with what they've done so far, as far as showing pathways and roadways meeting those connectivity standards that we have written into the development agreement, as well as some landscaping that would be installed throughout the pathway corridors, as well as in the open space property around the pond, the irrigation pond. And here I wanted to include this photo of this is what the current subdivision looks like for Vaquero Village. There's a few things that if the residents choose to go through with an amendment, the developer is responsible to front the cost of the subdivision fees, as well as the subdivision plat. And what they could do, and they have expressed interest in this, is removing some of the pathways around the perimeter of the property, removing the open space and incorporating that in with the properties, the adjacent properties, and also completing the landscaping improvements within common area parcel A. And moving on to the motions, there's several options that the planning staff would like for the planning commissioners to consider. Approval as is, approval with changes, and the motion to table, motion to denial. I'm going to go back to this one with changes. You'll notice that first condition there where it says development standards or some variation of these standards contained in Exhibit A of this memo are included with the final development agreement. So Exhibit A those are the development agreement standards that we mentioned, and those are included with your staff report. There's a recommendation that came from planning staff, and it has to do with excluding the Marriott property. And so what we would be left with is the exclusion of approximately 37.5 acres from this request, which would result in a 55-acre rezone to the R1-15 zone. And that concludes this comments I had. Any questions for me? I'd be happy to answer those.
Commissioners, any questions for staff before we go into public hearing?
I believe we have an agreement with the Parks District in here.
Correct, but if I understand right, the dollar amount's still being negotiated.
That's correct.
And I don't see that as part of the recommendation. That might be something that we need to include to make sure that the Parks District is in agreement.
I think it's wise to reiterate that, but maybe one thing that might be helpful is if you look at Exhibit A in the report, it does include mention of the contribution to the Parks District.
Okay. I'm just not sure what we need to include to
Right
make
here.
sure it ends up in the development agreement.
Under 7.3.1.
Oh, that is in
voluntary.
the, okay, so it is in the development agreement, so we don't need to say
That's-
that.
yes.
Okay. I just want to make sure.
Okay, anything else, commissioners? All right, seeing none, I will accept a motion to open a public hearing on this item.
So moved.
A motion, do I got a second? Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, we're now in a public hearing for this rezone on this item. If you wouldn't mind coming up to the mic, you have 3 minutes to speak, and please state your name and address for the record, if you wouldn't mind.
Well, first, Robert Pilarczyk. I live at 742 South, 7500 West. I want to thank you guys for putting us at the front of the agenda. I don't know how many times we've been here and been at the end of the agenda, and 9 o'clock rolls around and we're still here holding out. So I appreciate that. I also want to express some frustration that we're here again today with a proposal that doesn't match what was provided to the community. What was just presented doesn't match what was sent out to the community last week. It's changed again. So it's really hard to understand where we're going with this when things continue to change. Lived in West Warren my whole life, third generation member of the community. I don't really think this community is ready for this type of development. I know development is coming. We understand that, but we're really not ready for it. Infrastructure is not ready in particular. We don't have sewer in place. One of the key requirements to approve this rezoning is to have sewer available, or the developer must pay for it at their own cost. And unfortunately, I don't see any commitment along those lines. Roads, I brought up roads a number of times. 7500 West in particular is a big concern. If you've been out there, you know what I'm talking about. If you've actually seen the road, you know what I'm talking about. There's many concerns. Part of that road hasn't even been dedicated by some of the landowners for a road. It's narrow, it's only 15 feet. The egress requirements were 26 feet for the exit road from the fire department. Our road isn't even that So I'm concerned about that. I'm concerned that this is going to get approved, all the development will occur, and the county's going to come and take property along that road from us. And the road will be right at our front doorstep. So that's a big concern. We are sandwiched with the irrigation canal. I think if the county really wants that to be a minor collector at some point, you should consider moving the canal. I don't really think it's fair that everybody on the east side of the road bears all the burden, and we should consider all options. So I think that should be on the table. Number of things that might come up. By no means are we saying you can't develop. Right? I built a home out in that property or in that area. Landowners have rights to do that. They don't necessarily explicitly have direct rights to do RE15 right now. It's not supportable, and it's something that really we're not ready for yet. So when sewer is in place, roads are supportable, then it makes sense. But right now, it really doesn't make sense. One argument might be we need affordable housing. Well, if you look at the cost of the homes in Vaquero Village, we're really not doing affordable housing. All it really translates it into is more money for developers. That's how I see it. And we know growth is coming. And we just ask that this committee speak for us and realize that growth is coming. Our community is only like 200 houses. So by approving this development, it has a significant impact on all of us. The amount of people in the community, the parks that we have, the roads that we have, all the infrastructure is just not there. So I ask you think about that and think about some of the things that are in the general plan and the guidance that's already there for this type of development, and realize that we're probably not ready to go down that path yet. So thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments on this item?
Hi, Colleen Ingram. Need my address?
Yes, please.
710 South, 7500 West, Ogden, Utah. I echo what Robert said. I agree with what all the comments that he made, and I have a couple of questions. So there was a will serve letter from the Mountain View on the sewer, and the will. Okay, let me go back. I'm going to go to the other question. There's a will serve letter from Mountain View about ownership and responsibility for maintenance and operation of the irrigation pond, which I'm assuming is the secondary water. And John Price signed it, that he would take ownership of that. So my question is, who pays for that? So his service has to be paid for, and who's paying for that service for the Mountain View water? Okay. And then my second, question was, in the meeting on November 7th, they talked about the open space from phase 1, and that there was inaccuracy with who owned certain specific parcels of that open space, and that had to be cleaned up before the rezone request. And maybe that's been done and it just wasn't in any of the documents, but I don't see that either. So that was another question that I had. And then the last question is, in the previous meetings in October and November, they talked about a road study for 7500 West. To speak to Bobby's point, the width of the road, you can't even get two cars past each other. They can't pass each other. They have to go in one of our driveways for someone to go by. So they wanted a study done on, you guys suggested a study done on that road, and I know that hasn't been done. So that was another question. What's the timeline? Is that still going to be something that has to be completed? Thank you.
My name is Jake Stampick. I live at 729 South, 7100 West, so I'm in Vaquero Village. Just a couple, I guess, concerns, questions in addition to what's already been brought up by everybody. I think the biggest immediate concern that we have out there is the secondary water, and some of the exhibits indicate that the secondary water system will be fixed, and that will allow us to actually water our lawns out there. I think the biggest issue that I see with that is there's nothing in there as far as timelines. So, every single year we're struggling to keep our lawns alive and not lose landscaping and money and everything associated with that. So I would just ask that timelines be considered so that we're not continuing to deal with this years on end. And then the other thing is there in some of the exhibits, for example, with the Little Mountain Sewer, the will serve letter with that, it indicates that it will serve Longhorn, and there's other areas in documentation that indicate that Vaquero residents can tie into that, but within that will serve letter, there's nothing that talks about whether or not they will serve Vaquero. So I see that as a potential hole. And I guess overall, I would just ask that everybody look at this with the utmost scrutiny to make sure that there's not room for loopholes, anything like that, that this is watertight and everybody understands what they're signing up for and what the expectations are going into this. Thank you.
Any other comments on this item?
Neil Davis, 7212 West, 900 South, Reese, Utah. Questions I had was on the sewer. It says low pressure. Now, as I've studied, 20 PSI is as low as pressure as I can find a calculation for. I know where I worked, I had to work on some sewer pumps. They didn't make 20 pounds PSI going from the tank to the fields. So each house is probably going to have a pump that's a very special design pump. The guy that's got the pump that doesn't put out the pressure, he's going to be in trouble. So I want to make sure that this is an engineered, not just somebody saying, hey, 4-inch line goes down. And lift stations, I don't know where they're going to, well, they'll have to run at least a mile of power from 900 South to each one of the lift stations. I don't know if they'll have to be 3-phase or single phase. And also the secondary water on the Vaquero Village. All they have down there right now is single phase. Having spent my working years pumping water, it's going to take a lot bigger pump than he's going to get on single phase to supply that many homes. Another question I have is that I own the property just south. We have the drain ditch that flows through our property. When the Vaquero Village last year had problems with water, I went down the field and I got a trench dug across into our field, into the drain. No questions. Fence was taken down, trench was dug. I talked to Pat. He says, oh, we'll take care of it. I gave him permission to put a temporary pipe in. He has never put a permanent pipe into the drain ditch on their property. And also I went down another time and here's the bottom fence cut out and I think it's an 18-inch pipe stubbed into the drain on our property. No questions, just done it. And so I have some concerns on some things there. Thank you.
My name is Randy Giordano. I live at 7852 West, 900 South. And I'm all for growth. I'm not trying to stop in any way, shape, or form. The thing I'm concerned about is they're using tax dollars to improve the ponds out there and bring that line up there. They need to bring it up the road where it's available to everybody that lives out there. It's all our dollars. It's all tax dollars. I know it ain't coming from Weaver County, but it's still federal funds. Make it available to everybody.
You're referencing the sewer, right, Randy?
Yeah, the sewer.
Okay, thanks. Any more comments on that item? Seeing none, I'll accept a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
The motion, we got a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Passes. All right, thanks everyone for their comments. We can kind of run through and address a few things. But before we get kind of into this, I'm going to ask Director Grover, put him on the spot for a minute. Will you just kind of explain what's required at the rezone procedure in relation to utilities? And
Yeah,
so there's been a lot of questions on final sewer plans and some of that.
right. There was a lot of questions on that. There was some dealing with drainage ditches and things like that as well. Those specifics are looked at the subdivision level. When we start getting into sewer details and things like that, that's addressed at the subdivision level. So many of the questions that the public was asking about secondary water and those type of things, those will be addressed at the subdivision level. So, you know, while it's important that the developer's aware of those, we're aware of those things, but at the rezone level, there's only certain things that can be required at that stage. It's really more of fact-finding type things, but at the subdivision, there's ordinance that require all these things to be physically addressed.
So just for my simple mind and for clarification, what's required is they have to provide a letter saying that these entities can serve them.
Correct.
And that's basically it, that the entities know it's coming. The subdivision level is where everything will get addressed as far as line sizes, how it's going to get there and all that type of stuff.
Yeah, there was so many questions, and while they're all valid, the majority of them would be addressed. You know, the low water pressure, things like that. Those are all things that are addressed at the subdivision level.
And the ordinance require those things. So if, even though he gets the rezone, or if this rezone moves forward, if they can't address that at subdivision, then it doesn't move any further than that because those issues haven't been addressed.
Correct.
Okay.
It is at a dead standstill at that stage.
Okay.
Does that include the 7,500 question on traffic?
Yeah, we would look at the traffic study and those type of things at the subdivision level.
About the
as well.
ownership?
Yep, we would address that. In fact, I'm not sure if there was any that really would not be addressed at the subdivision level. Yeah, and Robert's concerns, and if I get your names wrong, I apologize. I even get my staff's names wrong. And those would be all addressed. Colleen, will serve letters, and those are all addressed at the subdivision. On Jake, he talked about secondary water. What is the timeline? And will they serve Vaquero for sewer? That's done at subdivision. On Neil, Mr. Davis, he talked about low pressure, secondary water, the drainage ditch. I would like to find out more information. I'll talk to engineering about that 18-inch stubbed pipe and then cutting the fence. That's a concern. And then on Randy, yeah, those are all things that are addressed at the subdivision.
How about Marriott's land being taken out?
I think we would want to take that out of there right now based upon information that we have received, where they're not willing to enter into the same development agreement that we're considering for this lot. We'd probably want to separate that so that when they still could come in and do that, but they would need to enter into their own development agreement for their specific property. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Thanks, Director.
I got a comment.
Yes, sir.
I agree with all this stuff having to be addressed during the subdivision phase, but I think one thing that maybe the Davises should get some relief on the drainage water, storm water that's winding up on their property. And my feeling is I think that probably needs attention as soon as they can get that.
And any of these things too, you could include them as part of your motion, but our ordinance already covers those type of things. So, if you want to include some of those, if you want to include, any of these things or all of them as part of your motion, you could, but it's not necessary because our ordinance requires that.
Well, I get that, but where I'm coming from is he's going to get wet in the next storm.
Yeah.
And so my thought is it'd be nice that they could get that fixed as soon as they can.
I'm not sure if we could trigger that to go into effect until they get to the subdivision level, because there's nothing to really tie their feet to the fire until they actually get to that stage. The rezone area, it's hard to tie those specifics at this stage of the game.
I surrender.
Well, I'm not wanting you to surrender, but I'm just saying I don't know if legally we can
Right, I get that.
require those at this stage. While we would like to address that, and maybe legal can chime in on that, but I'm not sure if we have the backing to do that.
I think even if we tried to do that, it would be hard to enforce it.
I think it might be a good conversation, though, if Director Grover passes on to engineering, and maybe engineering can work out something between the Davises and the owners of that parcel right back there, at
I'm
least
good with
in the
that.
meantime.
Yeah, I'm good with that. Thanks.
Because I think some of those concerns through in Exhibit A, when we've met in the past, I know we discussed those in depth about how hopefully they can fix some of those items. But Commissioner Wickern, you're
Yes, I
Yeah.
have.
Go
thoughts.
ahead.
You know me. Jake, I think Stampic is his last name. He had concerns about what was being required of the developer in Vaquero Village. And maybe this is a good question for you, Felix. Just what have we laid out in the development agreement as far as the timeline goes? And is secondary water part? I'm sorry, I didn't read it clear enough
Yeah, you're fine.
to know if those things are included.
Yes.
712?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we do.
Thank you.
We did include some standards that really relate to enforcing our code, because when a developer comes in and wants to create a private irrigation system, we have specific language that requires that they design the system in accordance with the culinary water provider, and that when that system is designed properly, that an entity that's capable of managing and maintenance and everything else would come in and actually take over that pond, that private system, and it would become part of a larger system. So that's kind of where we would go with this particular circumstance.
Awesome. So I did see it here, and I did see the part where, so essentially, as far as timeline goes, Vaquero Village would need to be improved at the same time as any new development in order for the new development to get permits. They would have to make the fixes in Vaquero Village at the same time.
Yes.
So that's the way the development agreement is to be read. So for those Vaquero Village residents.
So it's all got to go in concurrent with phase one, correct?
Yes.
The way the development agreement writes. Any fixes to Vaquero Village, when Longhorn phase one goes, that's when so there's a timeline, right?
That would be the timeline. That's
Okay.
right.
All right. I've got a question in relation to secondary water, and I know it was brought up here. So I did a little research on this, and I mean, we do have this exhibit E2 in here that states that Mountain View's water, not to be confused with Mountain View, because that's a separate irrigation entity, LLC, will take ownership and responsibility of the pond. And there was a question that was brought up: what is Mountain View's LLC. I did some research on the state website. All it is an LLC that's set up. It doesn't say what they do, or there's no information out there. So what's the information behind it?
Yeah, so as far as I know, I don't have a lot of details on what that is.
Let's ask
So,
Pat.
Yes, I think that's a good plan.
Your turn to speak, Mr. Burns. Thanks, Felix.
Good evening, guys. Pat Burns, 2702 North Mountain Road. If I could just really quick say something that has nothing to do with anything. June, I want to thank you for how awesome you've always been, and we'll miss you. Secondary water, that's John Price.
So is that going to be a new water company that's established out there?
Yeah, same one has taken his subdivision, doing his development over there. So the same water company.
Okay. I guess that's a little better. It still doesn't. I still have concerns, but that has nothing to do with the rezone. So, any other questions for Mr. Burns?
I'm going to put you on the spot. And I'm going to say that I hope that the repairs and to make it right with the people that own property in Vaquero Village is not solely dependent on what we have in front of us tonight. And that's kind of more of a statement than it is a request or a question. Those folks have been putting up with a lot for a long time. So I would certainly hope that whether this passes or doesn't pass or goes anywhere, that they're going to get some mending to their problems that they have there currently. So having said that, again, nothing to do with the item at hand, but I certainly hope it doesn't begin or start with this item that's before this commission now. Thank you.
Commissioner Favero, I second that. Concur with that agreement.
So it doesn't drain into his property. It drains into the irrigation pond. The drainage ditch that's on his property. So it's not flooding into his property. It just goes, the drainage ditch is on his property. And as far as if there was a pipe put in that he didn't know about, I wasn't aware of either. That's the first I had heard. And I've talked to him multiple times and didn't know that was an issue or a problem, but I can get out there tomorrow and work with him and fix it. I don't have a problem with that at all. But yeah, just to be clear, it's not draining into his ground. It just drains into the slough behind. Well, the slough is on his property, but the water's not draining to his ground. It's draining into the slough. That make sense?
I haven't seen it physically, so I'm not sure.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
All right, commissioners, anything else for Mr. Burns? Mr. Burns, you got anything else for us?
Nope.
Do you understand kind of where we're going from on the Marriott piece, pulling it out?
I apologize. Do I understand?
So in one of the letters from Western Basin Land and Livestock, it says that they will not go into a development agreement on that property. And so we feel it's best we're going to exclude that portion of the property
Sure.
for
Yeah,
that reason. Not holding you up anymore on your
Right,
part,
right.
but that part won't be rezoned at this time. But we do acknowledge that the access letters based on those in here. So
Gotcha. No, I apologize. I wasn't sure what you were asking.
Okay.
Yeah, and they just didn't want to be tied into the same development agreement. That's all. And then if they
if we
want to
rezone it all as one, the development agreement
Correct.
covers the whole
Covers
thing.
them
So
too. Yeah.
that's why we felt it was best to pull that section. Okay.
Perfect.
Thank
Okay.
you.
They weren't concerned. As far as I know, it wasn't a concern of theirs. They weren't excited to sign the development agreement, and so they don't have a problem being out as far as I know.
What I wonder is if they still think they're getting the property reason, they're doing just their own separate agreement. But if you pull them out, and they can't get their own separate agreement, they'd have to go through the same thing.
Correct. And if they still want to do
Explain
that,
to
I will
them.
still do that for them. So I would just come in and reapply for them if that's what
You
they want.
might start working on the next 2 years.
Yeah, tell me about it. Yeah.
That's a question.
you choose to exclude that from your recommendation to the county commission, we could definitely reach out from staff side of it and let the Marriotts know that that piece was excluded from that prior to it going to the county commission. So at least Cammie's aware of that.
I won't have to put it in the motion. They'll take care of it after.
Yeah, we can take care of that.
What I needed.
Because that's just common courtesy for us to let them know.
Okay. Thanks, Pat.
Okay, thanks, guys.
Then just one other, I guess, thing I want to throw out there to Mr. Giordano's comment. I agree with your comment, Mr. Giordano, but we're not really the governing body that's going to handle LMSA's stuff. I have made a comment to Commissioner Frower that it would be nice to know when LMSA meets and stuff that goes on with that district because it's pretty secretive. There's nothing on the state website that shows their meetings or their board and stuff like that. But that would be the place to go, I guess, kind of voice the concerns in relation to the tax dollars and where they lay those lines and stuff like that. So hopefully in the near future, they do start publicly posting their meetings so that if you guys out there want to attend and be involved, as you have been involved with this process here, I'd recommend that. So hopefully that addresses that.
One more quick comment. I appreciated everyone's comments today to help us direct where this property should go. And just to address, if I can say this right, Robert Pilarski, Pilarczyk? Who knows what I'm writing on my paper, Pilarczyk. Because there is a will serve letter, it does fall under our general plan that it does have sewer availability, but the burden will be on the developer, not on the community to connect that sewer. So whether that happens or not will determine at subdivision. And that's the same with the roads. It's not, the county won't have the power to use eminent domain to take people's property. That's going to be a negotiation that the developer will have to undertake. So I wouldn't be concerned particularly about that. There are definitely concerns, and just to reiterate that these are things that the developer will have to, by code, figure out at subdivision. And so I appreciate what everyone said here, but we are taking that into consideration. But within our power right here, as far as a rezone goes, I personally feel that he's met the requirements for the rezone, but that's probably not the biggest hurdle he's going to have to overcome.
Any further comments? Okay, I'll accept a motion if you guys are ready on this item.
All right, I move that we forward a positive recommendation to the County Commission for file ZMA 2023-04, a developer initiated application to amend the Weber County zoning map to rezone a total of approximately 55 acres, excluding the 37.5 acres owned by Western Basin Land and Livestock, located at 640 South, 7500 West, and all of the Vaquero Village Cluster Subdivision Phase 1 from A1 and A2 zones to the R115 zone. I do so with the findings from our packet and the conditions included in our packet. I'm just looking to make sure there weren't any additional. They were all in the development agreement. That's the next. That one's for the next one, not for this one. I'm right. Okay, good. Okay.
Okay, I got a motion.
You guys follow it. It's everything in the packet.
I'll second it.
Got a motion and a second. All right, roll call. Commissioner McCormick.
Aye.
Commissioner Andriotti.
Aye.
Commissioner Favero. Aye. Commissioner Wickern.
Aye.
Commissioner Neville.
Aye.
Commissioner Clance.
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well. That passes. Okay, thank you. Next item is going to be item 2.2 GPA 2024-01. This is a public hearing on a request to amend the future land use map of the general plan to allow for a designation change to the property located at 3300 South and about 3700 West. Felix.
Yes, thank you, commissioners. And we do appreciate the valuable insight and experience that you lend to these meetings and decisions. They definitely take a lot of thought, and this general plan amendment is no exception to that. And so what we'd like to do is just kind of start off maybe some background of this proposal. So a couple months ago, I believe it was last month or the month before, we actually held a public hearing for a rezone of the Navy Meadows development. But after looking further and considering what was shown on the future land use map in the Western Weber General Plan, this area was not shown to be accommodating for anything other than your R115 zoning, basically your medium to large lot residential. And so it was recommended by the planning director and planning staff that we actually table the rezone request and come back to the planning commission with a general plan amendment. And so that's kind of where we are today. And so in order for this proposal to fit in with the general plan, it requires that we amend the future land use map of the general plan. You can see what is proposed here, which is pretty standard, what we typically see. Your majority of this property is requesting to be rezoned to the R115. But then you have that little small pocket there on the southeast corner of the property. That one would be designed specifically for your townhomes. The R115 zone, we felt that R3 is a better fit for your townhomes. And so that's where we redirected the developer to apply for that, the R3 zone. And I'll go on to the next slide here. So here's the development plan showing this is the concept plan. So there's going to be some changes, but this is primarily what we'd be sticking with, and it would be included in the development agreement. And here is a slide showing the existing future land use map. As you can see, you have the yellow areas, which is medium to large lot residential. You have those open space corridors, the Hooper Slough and the Hooper Canal. Then you also have, just to the east, you have that area which looks like almost a burgundy purplish color. And that's area planned for mixed use commercial. And then surrounding that, you have what forms almost a buffer around the mixed use commercial. And that one is designated as mixed residential. And so what we'd like to do is also show generally what the amendment would look like. What we would do is we would amend the future land use map to show some an orange area expanded within the Navy Meadows development. Here's a photo just zoomed in on the townhomes. They're proposing 98. And something that we looked at as staff when considering if this is a good fit, if it's compatible with the general plan, the goals and principles, looking through the housing component of the general plan. we can see that there is some support for the creation of a wider range of housing types. As it stands, much of the areas that are being rezoned are utilizing the single family dwelling style. So a proposal like this would, we feel like it would fit in well with the general plan's goals to have a better mix and variety of housing types. We'd also like to bring up the topic of affordable housing. The developer and the housing authority, Navy Meadows, and the planning department, we actually met last week with the affordable housing, the housing authority, and we ran through some of the details and options, and we were pleased with the result of that meeting, in that the developer is willing to participate and work with and come up with a workable plan with the housing authority that would allow for the creation of 4 to 5 of these home units would be within the affordable housing range of cost. And I would invite the developer to speak a little more on that component. He's a little bit more well versed in that topic. Let's see here, going on to the next slide. Another component to the general plan is transportation. And so, as it is designed currently, the townhomes would be fronting against the 3300 South Street, which is proposed to become an 80-foot right-of-way, a major collector. And we've also, similar to what we've done with other developments, we would require that frontage be limited from these 80-foot right-of-ways. In other words, 3300 South is proposed to be an 80-foot right-of-way, so we would prohibit single-family dwelling driveway accesses off of 80-foot right-of-ways. Then you also have a main road going straight through the center of the development, and that would have that same limitation. We also, looking at the Wasatch Front Regional Transportation Plan, there are plans for 3300 West to become a major collector, eventually connecting to Hinckley Drive and out to the freeway. And with the creation of a development of this nature, there's public amenities that are included with your park space, parking within the park, pathways for pedestrian connectivity, and we also looked at the open space within that would preserve the Hooper Slough, so it could become a unique feature for this development. Let's see here, looking at the next slide here. This is a slide I'd like to show, also showing the primarily for the table, which helps to kind of show what's planned for these areas. A bike lane and pathway along 3300 South and along, I want to say 3900, let's see, 3900 West, this center street I'm pointing to here. And going to the next slide. So moving on to the motions. There are some options available as far as model motions in your staff report. And there is a slight change. Wait. Okay. So one of the conditions, I guess you could call it, within the positive recommendation with changes would be the motion would limit single-family dwelling access from planned 80-foot wide collector streets. And you know what? I may be on the wrong one. So I take that back. This one would be for the general plan amendment. It would be for the developer to coordinate with the housing authority to come up with a workable plan. And I think that really concludes. Hopefully that paints a clear picture. Sorry for the jumping around a little bit.
Thanks, Felix. Commissioners, any questions for Felix? Okay. And as we get ready to open the public hearing, just so everyone's aware, there's two public hearings on this item. The first one is going to be for a general plan amendment. The second one is going to be for the actual rezone. So the item we're on right now is just for the actual amending the general plan discussion. So with that, I'll accept a motion to open a public hearing on this item.
Chair, I'll make a motion.
Motion.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Passes. Okay, we are in a public hearing for the general plan amendment item. Anybody wishing to speak on changing the general plan for this area into that section of R3, please state your name and address. The record.
Hi, Kelly Rose. I live at 3730 West, 3300 South, right east of that property. We got enough townhomes, patio homes. We don't need a R3 in this area. For one thing, the roads cannot handle it. 3300, they've come to us to widen it, and we haven't heard when they were going to do it. We heard 5 to 10 years. Well, I've lived there my whole life, and the road will not handle anymore. It's too narrow. Numerous times there's been people go off in the ditches because it's so narrow, and they haven't made any motion to widen it yet. I would like to see them do away with the R3. I'm sure growth is growth. There's enough R3 in the county now. You don't need to cluster more houses in a little area. I enjoy my open space there. I used to be able to ride horses down the road. People won't even move over for you walking down the road, let alone on a horse. It's just, and to put that many units in there, people don't understand country living. Thank you.
Carrie Call, 2953 South, 2700 West. A few things. The staff report states that townhouses are a great option for young couples and first-time home buyers looking to enter the middle of the market, but first-time home buyers shouldn't be moving into the middle of the market, right? When we buy our homes, we buy at an entry level. When I bought my home, my first home 20 years ago, I didn't buy a brand new house, right? Anything that we're going to claim as affordable needs to be tied more towards our HUD housing level, right? And I don't know what the implication is that we're going to give you 4 or 5 houses. We'll throw you a bone of our 98 and make that maybe tied to that. I don't know what the intention is because that wasn't stated, but that doesn't seem like a solution if we're going to provide affordable housing and we just created 98 homes in an area that you didn't plan for. So if your general plan is supposed to reflect this, that you've probably already put those areas throughout the county, right? You should have your R3s in other areas because your general plan is going to provide for a variety of housing. The general plan certainly will have changes made to it, but those should be done very cautiously because you established it with the intention of having those types of housing, commercial and other developments in those areas. The Wilson letters there, one of them was corrected, I saw. I think it was Taylor West Weber Water. You know, those are all good for a year or so, maybe more than that. But Central Weavers was written for 211 houses, not 241. The density doesn't make sense. So if the idea is, well, it's close to this other density, then we're going to put it here. Well, that's just a rolling ball. So if now you've added your density here, then the next person says, well, there's density close, so I'm going to do it here. And it just continues to the west or to the north. So it doesn't make sense to have the argument, well, it's close to this one. Because as it's been stated before, and we all know, we have a lot of townhouses. West Haven has a lot of townhouses, and it doesn't meet the affordability. The state just put out a legislative audit that speaks to the middle of the market, and West Haven made a resolution that rejects that. We don't agree with those findings. And those are things to really be considered. The wetlands to me is an issue. I understand those are looked at later, but why would we consider putting a lot of density in an area that's possibly wetlands? It's going to take a lot from the Corps of Engineers to make that right if we're actually going to build there. So I think that should be taken into consideration because there seemed to be quite a large area that was wetland. So I would propose and suggest that you stick to your general plan the way that it is, allowing these, you know, moving from agricultural to the R115 seems like a great option. You're going to provide some great single family homes there, and I think that that's the way that it should remain.
Any other comments on this item?
Christine Clark, 3743 West, 3550 South in West Haven. I agree with everything that has been said by the last two persons. And just to, again, reiterate that we seem to almost be the dumping ground in West Haven for townhomes, patio homes, apartments. I run into people across the valley who, you know, for some reason, when they ask where I'm from, who have never been to West Haven, who say, oh, wow, I have heard that place has grown like crazy. And people refer to it as Apartmentville or high-rise Haven, that sort of thing. I'm not against growth either. It's coming, and you can't deny people the ability to develop their land. However, it just feels like enough is enough. And I live across, there's a field across the way from this new proposed development, and it will greatly impact the whole traffic flow and all the people trying to get to schools nearby and such. I'm against the R3. Thank you.
Hi, Jeff Reed, 4427 West, 3750 in West Haven. I'm not sure which public hearing I'm supposed to talk about this at, so I'll do it now. I didn't throw out the word affordability, so I'll go after it. Townhomes are not affordable. I don't care what you do, unless the developer's willing to cap them at $300,000, make them all, not just 5%, of the development of the townhomes is not a very generous offer. How about all of them? And how about we say it's $300,000? How about we make them owner occupied for the first 5 years so that it makes them truly affordable for people if we've got to do this. West Haven City's going through their general plan. People have overwhelmingly said that they want to keep that area country. I know it's Taylor, but we all know it's going to be annexed by West Haven at some future point. I think it's important to listen to the people. That's what this is really all about. It's not about the planning commission. It's not me as a person. I'm on the planning commission. But I try hard to listen to people before I make my decisions. And I know you guys do too. So take that into consideration. Thank you.
Rob Vanderwood, 3724 South, 3650 West in West Haven. I think one thing that was brought up that wasn't really explained very well was the transportation side of it. When you have a city that's a flow-through city like West Haven is, you have to really account for a lot of traffic that's coming from Hooper and from this western Weaver side. Yeah, 3300 South, we just spent a lot of money trying to get that road prepped for 3300 down all the way up as far as we could get up to Midland Drive. But what happens is that road that's supposed to split over that was mentioned about 3300 to 36, they didn't tell you that won't be done until 2028. We're just starting to get funding that's going to be produced to do acquisitions on that road. The idea behind that road that was brought to the attention when I first got on the city council was that we needed 2 roads to go through West Haven to try and cut some of the traffic down. And those 2 roads needed to be up on 1800 to 2100 to get people safely out of the city if there was an emergency. The other one was 3300 to 3600. Those 2 right now are in process, but not moving forward on 18 to 21 because we have a big project on 33 to 36. So WACOG has granted us some money to start that project, but we haven't even got to that point yet. So we have what you have if you put all these homes, especially these townhomes, you've got all this traffic that's going to come down 3300. And where's it going to go to? It's going to go down 3300 to Midland Drive. How many of you are familiar with that intersection right there? It's horrid. That's where everyone gets killed. And we've had fatalities there. And West Haven has worked with UDOT trying to figure out, and we just got UDOT to make that left-hand turn, 2 left-hand turns there. That's a great thing because it cuts back on the visibility, but it didn't fix the problem. So unless people are going to work in Hooper, they're going to come out that direction, or else they're going to turn down 35 and head over to 4000 and try and get out that way. But I think just take into consideration some of the growth, because part of your general plan should be, as it was mentioned earlier, is that your plan was your plan. And we did come to Weber County and talk to them about doing some amendments to their general plan to help us, because we know that eventually that probably will be annexed into West Haven. But some of the concerns still rise is that planning is changing. You guys are changing the planning, the way you're doing it, and it's changing the roads. The biggest part that we've had with West Haven being one of the fastest growing cities in the state of Utah, so from 19 to 21. We had so many people that came in and we did not have the infrastructure for it. So I would just ask that you consider that. And again, we're not from the western side over there too much, but eventually that will be part of West Haven, and we would just want to see that planning come into play. That's going to be a little bit easier. And as far as affordability that's been brought up, as it was mentioned, we did this resolution for a purpose, because nothing that they've shown the state so far has really been helpful to affordability or moderate income housing. So we want to work with the legislation to try and find solutions to that. And that's why a lot of cities are moving that direction. But I appreciate your time and thank you.
Julie Atwater, 3191 South, 3500 West. My concern is that ground is sub-level to the road. It's wet. They're going to have to bring in thousands of truckloads of dirt to bring it up to level without having flooding. I live on the east side of the waterway that they're talking about. And I live across the street from Canesville School. There already, it's impossible to get around that area during school time. When the kids come to school and when it's time for them to leave, it's a traffic jam. And what are we going to do with, I think it was 98 places to live there in that spot, which makes 200 more cars. Everybody has 2 cars, at least 2 kids. So we're at 400. And 1 access, I think that's what I heard. Maybe I was wrong, but I don't know. In and out of that subdivision onto 3300. That's a 2-lane country road until you get to 3500, and then it's wide. But then you get to 3300 and Midland, and that's a nightmare. I don't even go that way anymore. I go down, I think it's 3600, where there's a traffic light across Midland and up onto Hinckley Drive. So that's way more traffic on that road than there's ever been. And that's a 2-lane country road as well. So just small things like that add up and add up and add up and create chaos. I think that was all I had questions about. And people moving out there, where the street I live on is approximately 5-acre lots and lots of animals. And if city people move into those homes, quote, affordable homes, they're not going to be happy in the spring and the fall. They're not going to like the smell. And just those small little things add up. Okay, I think that's all I have. And we don't want to be annexed to West Haven.
Any other comments on this item? Seeing none, I'll accept a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Motion, do we got a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes. All right. Felix, I got a question for you. I kick it off with a question for you. Just help me put some numbers in my head.
Sure.
So looking at the numbers for Longhorn, based on, and I'm kind of putting all of this into one. I'm kind of getting a little off topic for the R3, but I just want some numbers. So the total acreage of the whole, or excuse me, not Longhorn, Navy. I'm getting way off topic. Been a long day. Sorry. All right.
Yes.
Navy, so we're talking 70, roughly 73 acres, right?
Yes.
So that at the R3 zoning, or excuse me, at the R115 zoning, that's given them 212 lots roughly, correct?
At the R115, yeah, something, I haven't done the math on that figure yet, but
So we've got the 212 is what, if they did without the R3, the whole thing, that would give them, so roughly going to the R3, I guess is where I'm going with this, based on my math, they're getting 29 additional lots overall, as we look at this as a whole, by putting in the R3, correct?
you know, I would take your word for it.
I'm not very good at math, so I don't know if you
Doing
can take my
math on
word
the
for
fly,
it. but
yeah.
Hopefully I did that right. So, I mean, as we've seen every one of these proposals coming through, and just for the publics that hasn't followed this or maybe just following it here recently, the townhomes have been in there since the beginning, correct?
The town, yes.
So basically what R3 is doing is they've given them about 29 additional townhome units. Is that safe to say? So 218 is what they could potentially get under an R3 or a, there I go R3 again, R115.
I thought we saw townhomes, but the density didn't breach the amount.
Yeah,
that they
it
were
never did.
allowed.
The townhomes have always been proposed.
But yeah, always townhomes, but the density met the R.
Yes. And that's where I'm going with this.
R115.
What I'm trying to just make sure I'm getting correct in my head is what the R3 gives them is roughly based on Mr. Barrow's math. What is that? 218 to 241. So 23 lots is basically 23 additional doors, I guess I should say, based on the density. So that's really what we're looking at here in consideration of this R3. I mean, I feel for these comments because I live just down the road from this. And do I want to see all this go? I don't. But do I want to look out my back door and see townhomes in the West Haven side either? I don't like that either. But guess what? It's there and I got to deal with it. Oh, no, I can stare right out the back window and see all them lovely townhomes in Greens. But hey, you know what? Greens is a great development. It went together really well. And so, you know, I feel the same that you guys feel. I don't want to see it. But also, you know, the area is changing. Agriculture in itself is changing. I mean, to Mrs. Atwater's comments there, I mean, I used to run 100 head of cows on this property that's in question to go. And because of the potential development, I sold all them cows. So, I mean, it's changing in the areas. But I'm off my soapbox for a minute. Anything else, commissioners?
So I guess this is the conundrum in my mind. Unfortunately, roads are not built before development is put in. Roads are dependent on development money. And so there's always horrible traffic before the traffic is fixed because the developers come in and provide money for the roads. It's incremental, which is difficult because each developer puts in their contribution of the impact to the community. So sometimes that's not enough to make the road wide enough. But whether we put these homes here or down the road, it affects these problem streets because people have to go, like you guys have noticed, people have to go through West Haven to get to West Weber. So across the street or a little ways down the road, we're affecting traffic in this area. And that's difficult and that's frustrating. I live in Uinta Highlands where we've dealt with crazy traffic and finally Utah has a plan that may take a decade to finish. We have no idea, but yeah, we spend 20 minutes to drive 2 miles to get our kids to tumbling classes. And so the new development surprisingly did not affect our schools, but it did affect traffic possibly, but I don't know that it was developed around us in particular or development in the community as a whole, because where I live is kind of a thoroughfare to getting to the community. So as we allow more development, we also get more funds, and UDOT looks at density. So without density, UDOT won't approve more funds to improve the roads. It's a nasty circle. But I guess what we're looking at here is, do we allow 29 more units in this area, or do we leave the zoning as the R115 and just allow what is proposed in the general plan? I don't think it's a huge, as far as the comments about the general plan, these type of things, the general plan is general. I don't see that this is that far off of what we're intended, and it flows because we don't know exactly what development opportunities will come our way. Yeah, I guess those are my thoughts, and I'd love more of your comments on how you feel about it.
That was my opinion, that the density would stay the same as the R15. That they could have the townhomes in the area that was specified.
So you're against the 29 additional?
Well, I didn't think there was any. I thought I asked that earlier to the director, but I might have been mishearing you.
On this specific
Now, if we're
item,
changing, if we have an R15 zone, if we're going to an R15, the density should stay the same on the whole 6 acres?
yeah, this wouldn't be the case on this one.
Okay.
You'd be looking at adding additional units if you chose to rezone to R3.
That's why last time we tabled this, because of what they were asking for, that's why it's back for a general plan amendment to go to R3 for those additional units.
Yeah, otherwise it would need to stay as the
Okay.
existing R1. But they're requesting the R3, so that's why it's before you.
One last thought. Because development has happened so quickly in West Haven, it may not be a question of having these townhome here, but the timing, just because development has happened faster than I assume your engineers can attack these transportation projects, even though funding is there. It takes a while for the city to actually construct these projects. So but at the same time, there's a little bit of time before these houses will actually be in the location.
Anything else, commissioners? I would like, if Mr. Hamlin wouldn't mind coming up, I would like to hear a little bit more on the affordable housing aspect and maybe a little bit enlighten us on the meeting that was had and kind of the details on that, if you don't mind.
Okay. Name's Doug Hamblin, 2335 East, 2400 North Layton. Just back to the density that you've been talking about. One thing that we had in mind and we thought about was making a nice park in there. We met with the Parks Division, and we've continually changed the design to accommodate close to a 5-acre park. And that's what we've tried to accommodate, which will benefit everybody in the community in that area, as well as walking paths and the walking path along the slough and making that a lot nicer. So those are some things that we've done, I'm not going to say in exchange for doing the townhomes, but we did take out some of our density for that park that could have been either patio home lots or regular lots. And so as we talk about the 218 versus the 240, whatever it was, to do the 218, we would need to utilize that park as lots. We wouldn't be able to make a nice big park, which is not what we want. We want to have a nice park in there. As far as the affordable housing, when we met, she mentioned that it needed to be, would we be willing to give 5 to 10% of the housing in that townhomes for affordable housing? I asked her what constituted affordable housing. She explained it to me, and and I feel very comfortable agreeing to that, even if we have to bump it up a little bit from 5%. And I mentioned that in our meeting, that we would go up to 7 or 10%. I don't have a problem with that. The number or the price of that house or those townhomes is going to be determined whatever they tell us what that needs to be. And we would work with them in order to make that happen. But when we met with them and talked about affordable housing, our goal is to build a nice unit. I mean, on those 5 to 10 units, we wouldn't cut the quality. It'd be the same as the other ones were built, but we would possibly lose money, on those units in order to get the affordable housing for them to, for that to work. And so I really enjoyed the conversation that I had with her. I think it's important that we do some affordable housing in that area.
Thank you for that. Any other questions for Mr. Hamlin?
Just so I understand the affordable housing. So a certain percentage of them the townhomes would be sold at a certain value to certain people. So the same townhome will be sold for a different cost to different buyers.
Correct. And we had worked with the housing to either identify or to help market that. That's something that we discussed, which, it's going to have to be written down in our development agreement, and when we get to that point.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Question, Director Grover. And I apologize, I wasn't at the meeting when this took place, but when we recommended, or the Planning Commission recommended approval of the townhome unit on the mixed-use commercial up the road from there, wasn't there a certain number of those that were deed restricted for affordable housing in there as well?
I believe so.
Do you just happened off cuff know
Charlie,
numbers?
do you have those numbers?
5 of those, and there was 66 units in that one, so roughly 8%.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I just was curious. I like, if we're gonna ask for some of this stuff, I like it to kind of be uniform, So if we asked 8% of that developer to do it, yeah, I mean, if this one's agreeable, 8% on these, just so it's uniform. What's that?
I have a silly question. I just said if it stays R115, he can still have townhomes, just less townhomes.
Correct. That's where that 20, we got some numbers between like 22 and 29 roughly.
So I have another dumb question then. That wasn't a dumb question.
No dumb questions.
So just for clarity, the proposal is to rezone the entire thing as R, just where the townhomes would be.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Separate.
But we're just discussing a general plan amendment now. The rezone will come next. But yes, it is just the area in which the townhomes sit to go to the R3 zone. Okay, commissioners, any further discussion?
Just a note that if the whole parcel is kept at the R115 and rezoned, then it is correct that we would lose some park space because we would need those lots would have to be larger.
More than likely, yeah, it would. I mean, because then if it stays 115, they would have to make adjustments.
I'm sure the developer's going to want to maximize the space here. So absolutely, I'm sure.
But
the park
right
would go well.
now it's laid out such that he can keep the parks because the density is close. Oh, he's not using all of the density that is available by using the parks in that area because he's only adding the 30 units. I see.
Well, because I mean, I guess from where you're going with that, it changes it all up. Because if it does go R3, then that gives all that grant back there additional, it changes it up because then there's 63. It would just change the lot numbers all up where there could be a lot more density in the back as well, but he's willing to limit it to what's there and giving the parks.
So I guess is that a guarantee that if we do this, would we be able to keep the density that's shown here? I don't know that we're guaranteed any of that.
Yeah, with the development agreement.
With the development agreement, we could.
Yeah.
Listed in a condition that the acceptable number of doors, I guess, doesn't exceed whatever, that number, that 241 number.
So we're not
essentially.
just granting density upon density.
Yes.
Okay.
Somewhere in here, there were some numbers on what those acreages was. But okay. Anything else, commissioners? I'll accept a motion if you guys are ready on this item. Don't everybody jump at once. We have three options here. Yes. I can't make motions.
Chair, I'll make a motion. I move we forward a positive recommendation to the County Commission for file GPA 2024-01, a developer-initiated application to amend the future land use map of Western Weber County General Plan to expand the mixed residential zone. The development is known as Navy Meadows, located at 4,000 West, 3,300 South. I do so with the following findings. One, amendment is supported by the Western Weber General Plan. Two, the proposal serves as an instrument to further implement the vision, goals, and principles of the Western Weber General Plan. Three, the changes will enhance the general health and welfare of Western Weber residents. Now, if I was going to make an addition, is this where I would make our addition to this?
You want to put that in your conditions.
Okay, I'll put that in the conditions. Okay, so then
you can just state your conditions.
The conditions for this would be to add an 8% portion of the townhomes that are being proposed, in the proposed R3 area of this rezone to be held for, and I'm not sure what the right income level is here. Do we moderate? Do we low? I mean,
just work with the Weber Housing Authority.
As designated by the Weber Housing Authority. And yeah, which is here, the developer communicate. Okay. This recommendation comes with the following findings. I think we already covered that.
Is that all your motion?
That's my motion. Sorry. It's a little rough, but it's there.
Just to clarify, so the motion is just one condition, and that's 8% be within the moderate housing applicable to or specified by the Weber Housing Authority, correct?
Correct.
And the findings was presented as well. Okay, I've got a motion. Do I got a second?
Second.
A motion and a second. Commissioner Clontz.
Aye.
Commissioner Neville.
Aye.
Commissioner Wickern.
Aye.
Commissioner Favero.
Aye.
Commissioner Andriotti.
Aye.
Commissioner McCormick.
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well. That passes for the general plan amendment. Okay, next item is going to be now for the rezone. So let me get my... Okay, this is item 2.3, ZMA 2023-08, a public hearing for consideration on a request to rezone 72.75 acres of property from A2 to R115 and R3, the development known as Navy Meadows. Director Grover, I skipped you last time, sorry.
No worries at all. This is a legislative item again, and as such, you'll be making a recommendation on this. You have made a recommendation on the general plan, so that will need to, if you approve it or however you do with this one, you'll need to make that conditioned upon that being approved through the legislative body. You'll need to have a public hearing on this and close the public hearing with a motion. And Mr. Lleverino is going to be presenting.
Just a clarification on that, just make sure I heard you right. So one of the conditions has to be that the county commission approve the general plan amendment, correct?
Yes.
Or all of this kind of reverts back.
Yeah.
Got it. Commissioners, you understand that part? Took
Do we
me.
need to list it as a condition, or that's just assumed?
No, I think you should make that a condition.
Okay, thank you. Felix, I'm not even
Yes.
going to attempt the last name, sorry.
Wow. Yeah, no, you're fine. So this is a continuation of what we just discussed, but I'd be happy to just kind of give some general details and walk through some of these slides. And what we're looking at here is that this one is a request for that same property, the Navy Meadows development. And this one would rezone the property. You would have a portion of it, that 64.16 acres, to R115, and then a portion to R3, that 8.59 acres. And this is located 3,300 south and roughly 3,900 west in near the West Haven city boundary. And here is the development plan. So maybe we can take a look at what they have designed here. And I'd like to point out that this is designed with connectivity in mind. So there's a section of code that we look at when we're reviewing subdivisions and developments. We want to make sure that there's ease of not only vehicular connections, but also pedestrian. And we also have spaces for as public amenities. These are public parks, and as well as a parkway that along the Hooper Slough. And so what this would allow for these residents to easily walk through the neighborhood and also enjoy the park space and in an efficient manner, in more of a direct route. And so we think this is pretty well planned. We do have a couple of minor suggestions that these could be addressed in a number of ways, and I've put red bubbles around them. So we're thinking aligning these pathways a little closer to the roads, so that way your pedestrians can walk from the sidewalks across the pathways to access this parkway on the west side. And then you'll notice there's also some labels here. We'd like to also see some pedestrian bridges along the parkway. And that way there's some pedestrian connections across to the other side of the parkway. And we're also showing that those bubbled areas along the south of this property, where you would have a pathway that runs more along the line of the slough, but you also have a pathway that connects you to that road along that south end. And here we have the public roads and pathways map. So this is something we use as to help to kind of compare and contrast what the developer has proposed and what is planned with the future land uses in this area, as far as open spaces, pathways, roads, and we think this plan that they presented is quite well designed and aligns well with this. And let's see here. Water conservation is also a key element of this, all new developments. So all new developments will be held to a standard water-wise landscaping. And that's something that we recently adopted into code, and it will be implemented through as a requirement. And in order to lessen the impacts that come from residential development, we're recommending that they have these outdoor lighting, whether it be street lights, sconces that are part of the house, exterior lighting for the single family dwellings and also the townhouses, that those be fully shielded and downward directed. It creates a nice ambience. And I've included some pictures of the pathway. Part of the reason why this development is designed as it is because you need to consider also what is in the surrounding area. You have several parks to the north. You have a park to the north, the Staker Farms Park. And you also have, again, like I mentioned, the Hooper Slough and the Hooper Canal. Those can become, at some point, corridors for pedestrians. Areas that are removed from roads, areas that can be safe for pedestrians, and where they can feel safe, and also where kids can go and play. Renewable energy is a component that is something that we do look at. In this case, I think renewable energy would be something more available for maybe the single family lots. In order to keep some of these townhouses more affordable, maybe renewable energy is not the best for the townhomes, but just thought I'd bring that point up. This map is also helpful to show some of the existing and residential uses that are in the area. Some of the existing and planned uses for adjacent properties include your mixed use commercial and mixed use residential. Let's see here. So traffic is sure to increase, as was highlighted, some of the concerns from the public. And I think it's also important to understand that as more development takes place on 3300 South, on the south side of the street, and also on adjacent properties, the planning department will also require similar infrastructure improvements, including safer shoulders, grade separated pathways along these corridors, which would eventually create an area that would link up and provide safe passage for pedestrians. And as was also mentioned by a public comment, is some of this area is part of the wetlands. It's the wetlands delineation. You can see that some of these will be mitigated. If it turns out that some of these are actually valuable wetlands that are, that determined by the state, then the developer would be required to replace some of those valuable areas in another location. There is also incentive for areas that are deemed as important wildlife or riparian areas. Those should be preserved, and we think that this plan does preserve areas along a buffer area along the Hooper Slough. So we think that is accomplished well. So this map is also helpful to show some of the existing development. That yellow indicates a school. And you can see on the corner of 3500 West and 3300 South, there's some commercial and also some roughly 9,000 square foot lot development. And those green circles indicate the location of parks, existing parks. And so the staff has prepared several model motions to go along with this request. And let me see if there was anything special that I would like to add. Okay, there is one thing that that was highlighted. That handout that I gave you in the pre-meeting highlighted something that we think is important to add, and it's standard number 7. And so what we're looking to do is limit access points from single-family dwellings, the single-family dwelling lots, limit access points from these 80-foot wide right-of-ways. And so again, that's something that I'll state it verbatim. It says there shall be no single-family dwelling access from the planned 80-foot wide right-of-way collector streets. And I'll just highlight those really quickly, which streets those are. That includes 3300 South, and it includes 3900 West, that road going straight up the center. And so that concludes the presentation for the zoning map amendment request. Any questions?
Any questions for staff, commissioners?
Felix, I don't think I followed this in the pre-meeting, but the handout you gave us with this recommendation here, it starts on number 3, but I can't find 1 and 2. But these are findings and these are recommendations. So I don't have the first two recommendations anywhere.
Yeah, so they would be the same as what's in the report. The only reason I added these 2 pages and highlighted that is because those are the pages that were affected by my changes.
Oh, I'm on the wrong. After this?
No, it's before that.
I'm missing pages in my report.
I hope not.
Thank you. Sorry, I was on the wrong
No,
one.
you're
That's why I
fine.
was like,
Just fine.
I cannot find 1 and 2.
Just fine.
Okay. But this is the, yeah, but this is the rezoning. Oh, yeah, we're in the rezone. We're in the rezoning. Sorry. It's not the plan amendment. We're good. Okay.
Any commissioner, any comments for staff? If not, I'll accept a motion to open the public hearing on the rezone.
I'll make a motion.
A motion, we got a second?
Second.
Motion and second. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? That passes. Okay, we are now in a public hearing for the proposed rezone of this property from A2 to R115 and R3. Any public wishing to speak, please come up, state your name and address for the record. Or you could just tell us to echo the comments from the previous item. No one wants to speak. We can close the public hearing and keep going. Mr. Burns?
Patrick Burns, 2702 North Burns Lane. So I do this for a living, and I'm in front of planning commissions all the time. And I work with lots of different staff all the time. I don't have a dog in this race with this development. I do own ground right down the street, but I don't have anything to do with it. As far as planning and putting together, I know the hours that staff has worked on something like this because I can see it in the design. But with the connectivity of roads, master planning, future use, whoever's put this together did a great job. I support it as far as I consider myself a master planner. But anyway, I support this. Whoever designed this and put it together, I can see some of staff's stuff that's in here just because I happen to deal with them all the time. But this meets the master plan, in my opinion. And like I said, I own ground right down the street, and I fully support what this is. Thank you.
Any other comments on this item? Mr. Rose?
Kelly Rose again, 3730 West, 3300 South. I would like to see him do away with the R3 and make it all R115, whatever it is there. There's enough future big growth out there and clustering houses, and it's beginning to not be rural anymore. They're just jamming too many people into a little area, and affordable housing, that is not affordable housing there. I have not seen any of those patio homes or those that's affordable for people. I oppose the R3, but I'd like to see it all go R15 if that's the case. Thank you.
Julie Atwater, 3191 South, 3500 West. I think it should stay the R15. The R3, I just would never live there. It's too many people in a small space. I guess that's all I have to say about that. And again, the flooding and the water and how they're going to make housing and or without flooding the basements and flooding patio homes. I don't know. There's other developments that are in trouble for the very same thing. So over on the other 3,600 and 4,000. Okay.
Mr. Peterson?
Lance Peterson, resident of Taylor, 3881 West, 2550 South. Like Kelly, I'm a lifelong resident out there, known of the Roses because we live straight through on 2550. But, change and growth is coming, and we're just making lemonade out of lemons, really. Bren, you mentioned you hate looking out the door to West Haven and seeing townhomes, but it is what it is. That said, I'm also the treasurer of the park department, and I just want to say Hamlins have been wonderful to work with. I've spoken with Mr. Hamlin and his son Jason a couple of times, and we really appreciate the honorable approach they've made with us on these parks. I don't think we have the exact layouts totally figured out yet, and we'll look forward to hopefully working with him on finalizing this plan here for this development and being able to develop a really nice park and a really nice parkway along the waterway there for the future use of our citizens. And yeah, I wouldn't live there either, but you know what? I've got my own little piece of the world and I'm happy there. But thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Peterson. Any other comments on this item? Seeing none, I'll accept a motion to close public hearing.
Make a motion to close public hearing.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right. As I look over both sets of comments, because I think a lot of those were to roll through on both of these items a little bit. The comments of the flooding and the infrastructure needs, I think, as that was discussed earlier, Director Grover, a lot of that stuff will come into play when it comes time for subdivision. And there are some really, just like the last item, there's a lot of hurdles to jump through in light of some, with their sewer and some other stuff that's got to be addressed to get this done. But that's not what we look at the rezone phase. They'll deal with that when it comes to a subdivision point, and we'll be able to have those discussions and ensure that those things are addressed at that time. Any other comments from commissioners?
I just want to say that this proposal in particular, what it came down to me was the parks area, that we gain from having the community laid out this way, that we have a developer that's willing to work with the Parks District, and knowing the Parks District is happy with what's being proposed, made a big difference. I would like to, in a proposal, assure that we don't have any more. So if we did just blanket rezone to the R15 for the area designated R15 and R3, he would have more building rights than he is shown here. And I'd like to limit to just what we see here in the proposal, even though so for this particular zoning, it will be limited to how many residences we see here. And of course, there'll be some adjustments, but the numbers won't increase. So we aren't essentially having R15, and it isn't all R3. We're getting kind of a blend, a little bit more density, but not much more density than we would see if the whole thing was R15. But in this way, we get parks and a meaningful community that we wouldn't have gotten if it was a blanket R15.
Anything else, commissioners?
Yeah, I thought we talked about in the pre-meeting that there should be a road stubbed into that island that faces 3300. In the future, that can be a cul-de-sac. I mean, things will change. Nothing stays the same. That way that you wouldn't have any access going back out on 3300 to clutter the road up.
I had that same question, but I wasn't sure if it would be here or subdivision. I have an additional question with roads, and that's with those 3 lots on the very west end that are facing 3300. Those would be rear facing. So the house. Oh, yep, I forgot. Sorry, Jed.
Number 7.
Yeah, just making sure we're not interrupting the flow of 3300 or down the middle.
So it's taking care of both.
Yes, because they're in the
Okay.
You know what? If I may, I did have a conversation over the phone with Mr. Val Sanders, and he owns property to the north of this. His concern is particularly the road stub that's right next to the slough. And so, as you can see, that road stubbing north, it's really close to the edge of the slough. So there is some potential for shifting those roads eastward, just to avoid interrupting that greenway along the slough. Just to kind of bring that to your attention. Hopefully, if you feel like it's a good idea, a good move, then I would agree.
The slough right here, right? Oh, that one further. Oh, that one's too close, but this one's not too close. Oh, because it's going straight. Okay.
Just a thought, and I think that's a good point from Mr. Sanders, or is it Peterson? I get him confused.
No, I agree. But in light of that too, I'd like to see that pathway move along the slough going to the north. I know that's always kind of been. I know on the West Haven side, they've kind of got that pathway going along the park over at Staker Farms Park. So someday, hopefully, them could all connect. Okay.
So we have all of your recommendations here, but they don't include all of the smart growth principles. Is that something I should include, that the development agreement should include all of the smart growth principles?
Yes.
Okay. Because most of them are, but just a few of them aren't delineated. So if I had something like the development agreement address the smart growth principles in the general plan. Okay.
Yep, that'd be fine.
Any other comments or questions, concerns? They're on staff's market.
Is it?
Maybe it was on the last month or last one. Yeah, see right there. So it's in what?
Oh, it's in the adjustment. So it's covered. It's already covered under something else. Okay.
It's
As part of staff's recommendations that we're including. Okay.
correct.
All right.
Okay. Anything else, commissioners? I'll accept a motion whenever you're ready. We got 4 options on this one as he presented us.
Chair, I'll make a motion that we approve, and I'm trying to find it, with a positive recommendation to the County Commission for file ZMA 2023-08, the developer initiated application to rezone 72.75 acre property from A2 to R115 and R3. The development is known as Navy Meadows, located at 4,000 West, 3,300 South. I do so with the following findings. The zoning map amendment supported by the Western Weaver General Plan. The proposal serves an instrument to further implement the vision, goals, and principles of the Western Weaver General Plan. And the changes will enhance the general health and welfare of Western Weaver residents. I motion for a positive recommendation with changes. Before consideration by the, I'm actually going to read all of these if you'll bear with me, just so that the residents here know the stipulations that will come with this. Before consideration by the county commission, the owner will voluntarily enter into a development agreement with the county. That development agreement will include provisions listed below. Number one, the concept plan includes the appropriate width of right-of-way for all planned streets within the development to conform with the latest version of the general plan. Number two, the streets and pathways are designed to comply with the section 106.24.030 connectivity incentivized subdivision code. Number three, coordination with the Parks District. The concept plan includes the creation of a 10-foot pathway surrounding the 4.82 acre park with connections to adjacent pathways and a mid-block pathway connection northward. Number four, coordinating with the Parks District, the developer includes sufficient water shares for the park spaces. Number five, the pathways include shade trees, plantings, and benches placed at a distance recommended by the Parks District. Number six, the final layout of streets and infrastructure shall conform to the county commission approved concept plan. Number seven, there shall be no single family dwelling access from the planned 80-foot right-of-way collector streets. Number eight, the street shall be lined with trees spaced at a distance so at maturity their canopies touch. The trees shall be of a species that are deep rooting and have a high likelihood of survival given the unique characteristics of the soil. Number nine, the agreement addresses smart growth principles found in the general plan. And number 10, the road stubbing to the north towards the slough is adjusted to avoid the slough going north. Oh, thank you. And number 11, no more than 143 residences shall be included in the R15 zone, and no more than 98 townhomes will be included in the R3 zone, or residences, 98 residences in the R3 zone. And then this recommendation comes with the following findings. The proposal implements certain goals and policies of the Western Weber General Plan, and the development is not detrimental to the overall health, safety, and welfare of the community.
Just on the parks one, are you okay to amend your motion that that's a donation to the Parks District?
Yes. So we'll stipulate that items 3 and 4 are a donation to the Parks District.
And then one other thing, would you mind amending your motion to add another condition to put some sort of like a chain link or some type of fence along the east side of the development next to the Hooper irrigation canal? I think that's in ordinance that had come through at subdivision, but just want to make sure that's addressed.
Yes. So the motion includes safety fencing along
the canal. Thank you. Okay, I have got a motion with the 12 conditions and the findings as stated.
Second.
Oh.
No?
Yeah, no, I've got a motion on the floor, so
Okay.
we can discuss, yes.
Oh.
We can't take comment, though. Yes.
Sorry, with the previous one with the 8% that Commissioner Favero included, do we need to add any language in this regarding that?
No, because that, correct me if I'm wrong, Director Grover, that'll carry over onto this with that general plan amendment, correct?
It would, but you could also include that in here if you so chose.
Yeah, it's probably wise to include it.
Would you like to amend your motion again?
I'd like to again amend my motion.
Well,
that
13.
13. The 8% of the townhome units are trying to think that are negotiated with the Weber County Housing, or deemed affordable through the Weber County Housing Authority.
And then one other amendment, if you don't mind, that all of this reverts back if the county commission doesn't approve the R3 general plan amendment change.
Yes.
So that's number 14.
That's number 14.
Miss June, you got all that? As long as you get it done before you retire. Okay.
We won't survive otherwise. No, I'm sure. We'll
I have
figure
a
it out.
motion with the
Second.
14.
It's getting late, man.
Okay, I have got a second on that motion. Any further discussion? We will vote. Commissioner McCormick,
Aye.
Commissioner Andriotti,
Aye.
Commissioner Favero,
Aye.
Commissioner Wickern,
Aye.
Commissioner Novell,
Aye.
Commissioner Clontz.
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well. Okay, that passes. Sorry, we couldn't take your questions on the motion, but just go ahead and if you got questions with Felix, he can address that. So thanks. Sorry, I wasn't even paying attention. So. Okay, next item. Everybody leaves, all the fun's over. All right, next item is item 2.4. GPA 2024-02, an application to amend the future land use map of the Western Weber General Plan to redesignate area within the Winston Park subdivision to from open space to residential. Director Grover.
This was noticed as a public hearing. On the agenda, it doesn't indicate that, but in the staff report, it does. I think we're okay as far as legal standing goes. So you will need to have a public hearing. You'll need to open and close it. And again, you'll be making a recommendation to the legislative body, the county commission, and Mr. Ewart is up on deck.
Yay, Charlie.
Hello.
And
It's
he'll
been
be
nice
up
to
there
sit-
shortly, huh,
I was
Charlie?
going to say, it's
Yeah.
been nice to sit through 2 hours of
Charlie.
not me.
Yeah.
You got a point. You're up on.
That's right. That's right. Let me get this screen shared here. Okay, as Director Grover mentioned, we're looking at a general plan amendment right now, followed by a potential rezone. We all know where Winston Park is, but just a quick overview for the large crowd that came, or stayed, I should say. We're off on 1800 South and about 600 or so west. The property that is the subject of the general plan map change is this polygon right here. On the general plan, it's currently shown as green space or open space, Parks and Rec here. And the proposal there is to fill in that open space with some homes under the R115 zone. And so you can see the general plan could be changed to look like that. I'm showing that as alternative one. That's what's in your staff report. But let me show you alternative two. Just taking away the orange, which is mixed use residential. And we can either have the orange in there. If you do have the orange in there, I recommend you do it on both sides. But if we're concerned about what's going on across the street because we don't have any specific plans, then maybe we don't put the orange on and we just do the R115 and then allow townhomes, if you do allow those townhomes that they're that you've asked them to consider. We still allow them to the development agreement. Okay, we'll make that possible.
Did that take a rezone?
Lot averaging. It will take a rezone, and which will be the next thing on the next item on the agenda.
Oh.
A couple things to think about. The yellow area on the map talks about medium to large size residential. Medium to large size residential lots is provided for in your plan. Primarily looking at a build out of approximately 15,000 square foot lots, or an average of. Your plan also talks about mixed use residential and missing middle housing. It doesn't show any in this location here, but if you chose to put a little bit there, you certainly can at this time. The concept that townhomes are not affordable, they're more affordable. They're not affordable to moderate income people right now if you sell them on the open market at open market prices. And so the concern that a lot of folks in the public have already expressed that these are not affordable homes, they are certainly more affordable than otherwise. But the other thing that the legislature is really pushing us to do is do upzones so that you can get a greater saturation on the market. You put a lot more houses out there, and the chances that housing continues to balloon like it has recently is going to go down. The reason why it's ballooned so much is because there's a huge constraint. You have a lot more families looking for housing than you have housing availability. So you put a lot more out there, and it stands to reason within a few years, those prices probably won't come down, but at least as our wages increase, those prices won't increase quite as rapidly. In time, hopefully leveling out. At least that's the theory behind the idea. Density averaging is also in your general plan. Talks about using opportunities to look at the average of what a zone or of what a general plan designation might provide, as opposed to looking at the strict lot standard. Like R115, maybe you just take the average of the area, which frankly is what we've been doing with all the rezones we've been looking at, is using a lot averaging with street connectivity incentivized development. So just to sum up real quick on the general plan amendment, you got 2 alternatives and then 1 backup alternative. So alternative 1, change the map, use medium large designation for the single family lots, and use mixed residential designation for the townhomes. Alternative 2, you change the map, use medium large designation for the entire property, and then during the rezone, use lot averaging by development agreement to enable those townhomes. And then 3, do nothing. It's always the alternative that is inferred if we don't ever say it out loud. So possible action, you can recommend approval with changes. Just make sure if you do recommend approval, it's with one of those 2 options, 1 or 2. Recommend denial, that's option 3, or table if you wanted to see a little bit more from us. Any questions?
Charlie, maybe this has been discussed and I missed it, but has the form-based code for this intersection and area been looked at or discussed? Or, I mean, as we look at, like we talked before, I'm against putting that R3 in there. It's just a little island that don't need to be there. But maybe it is a little village area that could be created out of that corridor. I mean, it's, in my opinion, almost a better place than the other area we put it, just for, connectivity and where people are going and what's in that area. So has that even been looked at or discussed?
No, we haven't talked about it at this intersection at all.
Can you put that back up, Charlie?
Sure. The map, right?
Yes.
Yep.
So looking at these primary intersections, these really are the right places for greater densities at some point in time, not necessarily saying this is the right time. At some point in the future, you might want to see that. If you don't look at it on the front end, you're tearing things down in order to provide or pave ways for more density in the future, if you do choose to have those. You put a little bit more density at the primary intersections so that you keep the higher volumes of traffic off of the internal residential streets. That's just kind of a concept that goes to play there. But there's no obligation to make this anything more than residential for all 4 corners. So you just choose at your discretion. We didn't put it on the map because it wasn't part of the West Haven plan. So as you recall, we tried to reflect to a great degree what West Haven had on their map. They showed a lot of commercial space in areas that we're showing mixed use commercial space. But if you look up in this intersection here, they didn't have anything other than residential there. We also
just on the other side of the road.
What's that? Yeah, West Haven is on this. That's the white kind of crosshatch. That's their annexation declaration area as of right now, on the other side of 3500 West. Which, just in case that's not clear, this is 3500 West, and this is 1800 South.
So not to drag this discussion on further, but what would it take to look at doing the form base in this area? I mean, in my eyes, I want to see the higher density go on this crappy ground and save, potentially save some of the better farm grounds or, the open space areas for those. And as I look at this whole intersection, they ain't very good dirt.
What does Wade Ramsey say?
Well, I want to know, just before we get to the applicant's side, I want to know what it would take for the whole intersection to be looked at. And is that something the county commission would have to kind of be in favor of doing in this area to move that form base area if it's not applicant driven.
Yeah, we could possibly give that a recommendation to the county commission to see if they'd like to do that. From my side of things, I'm a little concerned about our staff time at this stage of the game. I know Charlie would just say, I'll do it, and that because that's the kind of employee he is, but I'm concerned about his time and I don't want to. Right now, we're kind of stretched thin just because of.
Steve didn't do that much. Come on, now you're giving him a big head. Just kidding.
So, yeah. So we're just kind of waiting to see what happens up in the Ogden Valley. So
He did all the things I didn't want to do.
Bill needs more to do, right?
I can find stuff for him. Yeah.
Okay, so silly question to begin with. Right now, we're showing the mixed-use residential right here.
Right.
And we're questioning whether we change, and it's open space designation right now.
Right now it's this. Yep.
Oh, right now it's open space. There is no mixed use. We're just determining what we turn it into.
Yep.
Okay.
So either that or that. or
If
some
we turn
combination.
it into,
Because right now we're just playing with the colors on the map.
got it.
The rezone will come next. And I drove us off the ledge on the form basin.
I just wanted to see.
I'll
it.
take my comments back on that, but back on task. Sorry.
Well, Mr. Chairman,
Actually-
to your question, tell me to make the change right now. It's not going to take very much, and we'll get it in front of the county commission as part of this. But you won't have a whole lot of time to debate it, look at it, deliberate. I suspect that Director Grover's right. As we get looking at this, we're going to be having bigger policy discussions, which is going to take a little bit more time. Unless you don't want to have those discussions, I can put a blob of red right here at this intersection.
Well, it needs to happen because we don't have a lot of blobs of red. And as we keep building all these homes out in here, somewhere there's got to be the spot for the grocery store and the auto parts store. And, you know, we lost our only convenience store out in this area. So I know.
They're working.
And that is why there are no stores out there. There aren't enough people yet to
Oh,
take
no.
the jobs and to
Country
support
Corner
the
was
jobs.
extremely busy. It was a good store.
It
That
was.
was the best gossip in town.
Yeah. Okay, back on topic. Sorry. So for any other questions on the changing the colors? I don't like this one. I like his other one. I don't like the R3 in the area, but
I got a question. If we did this on averaging, would it looks like there's 6 of these. Is that right? Or 5? 1, 2.
potentially 6 on the townhomes
6.
is what they're proposing. Yes.
So if this was averaged some way, would we get those 6 without changing it?
Yes.
Yes.
Well, it seems like to me that's the thing to do.
Yep.
Yeah.
I agree.
And then the next item is the rezone. And in that one, if you just stick with the R115 and you allowed them to go up to 12 units, if you're comfortable going up that much, that's what I'm recommending. They still have enough to
For
do
12?
even more than that
Okay.
if they
Yeah,
they
that-
wanted to rearrange their single family lots.
Quit putting more density out here, Charlie. We'll stick to 6. Just kidding.
I'm okay with 6.
All right. Well, you guys good to go in a public hearing? Okay, I'll accept a motion to open a public hearing for
So
the general
moved.
plan amendment. Motion, I got a second.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we are now in a public hearing for the general plan amendment, which is changing the color to the couple possible options we have. Anybody wishing to speak, please state your name and address for the record. Mr. Burns.
Patrick Burns, 2702 North Mountain Road. I know you guys are surprised to hear from me. I actually own a lot or two in this development. And I'm sick of developers coming in and wanting to put in density and take away the rural feel that I haven't. I'm just kidding. I support everything on this development. Thanks.
Hopefully we got that on record because I might want that later. I want that recording. He only did it because who's sitting in the room. If all them other people are in the room, he wouldn't have said that. Any other comments on this item? Okay, I'll accept the motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, discussion on this one. I'm in favor of option. What's our options? Put your options back up there, please, Charlie. 2. No, the word one. The word one. Sorry. the alternative slide. Yeah, there you go. I have a struggle with this all together. I don't have a struggle changing this map, but this was a designated open space piece. We can get more into that next time, and that's where I struggle with this a little bit. But as far as changing the color on the map and knowing what the ground is, this is the best use for this property. That's my 2 cents. Any other comments, questions, or concerns?
I'm okay with color change, but I share your concerns on the next one.
What did you say? Commissioner Clontz.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, then I will accept a motion on this item.
Chair, I'll make a motion that for item GPA 2024-02. Oh, sure, Charlie.
As he's changing screens.
Yeah. That we move forward a positive recommendation for summary alternative number 2 to change the map using the large designation for the entire property. In other words, keeping it as zoned R115 during the rezone lot averaging by development agreement to enable townhomes. Maximum amount of townhomes. I don't know. Does that play into this motion or is that our next one?
No,
Next one.
you could put it on there because we did it on the well.
I don't think it's as necessary.
We didn't do
averaging,
R3.
we're not granting anything.
Yeah, we're not doing the R3. So, okay. I'm good with that motion.
Okay, I got a motion. Any discussion? Not all except a second.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Commissioner McCormick.
Aye.
Commissioner Angiotti.
Aye.
Commissioner Favero.
Aye.
Commissioner Wickern.
Aye.
Commissioner Neville.
Aye.
Commissioner Clontz.
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well. That passes. Okay, next. Item 2.5, ZMA 2024-02, an application to rezone. Let me clarify, a public hearing and an application to rezone approximately 40 acres of land generally known as the Winston Park subdivision located at approximately 3679 West, 1800 South. You're getting specific there. From A1 zone to the R115 zone. And I'm leaving out the R3. Director Grover?
We're on a roll. This isn't same as all the others. So
Perfect.
Just remember that.
Most of the public understand now at this point.
Pat's still struggling, but most of it. Just kidding.
We could probably get some money out of that. Well, out of that comment, we said we could. I mean, that's black. Just kidding. Sorry, Charlie. What do you got for us?
So similar to what we just discussed, we're over there on 1800 South and about 3500 West. This time we're talking about the entire Winston Park subdivision. It's about 40 acres or so. It includes lots that have already been subdivided. And one of the reasons why we're looking at it that way is because if we were to kind of roll back all the decisions to before that subdivision went in, that was a PRUD subdivision. I think in the staff report I said cluster. It's a PRUD, not a cluster. But either way, you're clustering lots in exchange for meaningful open space. If we went to before that time and the R115 zone was a possibility, I think we'd probably see something a little bit more like what you have proposed in front of you. And so rather than looking at it as PRUD with permanently preserved open space, we're just looking at the entire 40-acre piece as how many lots could you get out of this in the R115 zone, which the answer to that question is like, I have it in the staff report, it's like 116 lots or so. Phase 1 has 54 lots right now. They are amending 2 of those lots to allow for street connectivity like we've asked them to do. And so phase 1 will retain 52 lots, which gives them quite a few extra lots that they can do on this remainder piece if you are allowing them to rezone and subdivide it.
Quite a few.
Quite a few. So yeah, I think it was 116 minus 52. So whatever that number is, 60 something
Quite
probably.
a few. You're good.
Yeah, quite a few. But they're not proposing to maximize that. If I recall correctly, they're asking for 20 something.
29 and 6 townhomes.
There you go. Yeah, they were only asking for 29, right? And then we mentioned to them the possibility of doing some townhomes, and I believe it was phrased to them in the form of a request, and so they came back and offered that to us as kind of an incentive to help with some affordability in the area. I've got two options for you. We've got option number one, which your general plan recommendation just now would exclude, or option number two, so just not having the R3 right there. This is the conceptual layout for the subdivision. You can see in blue over here, this is the existing development. Nothing's proposed to change there, with the exception of this little piece. This is where those two lots are that the developer has worked with those lot owners to connect this street through here so that they can get street connectivity. They originally had this street proposed to go through right here without this bend, but we have a subdivision application that is now entitled to subdivide property right across the street at just the 1 acre parcel, and they're proposing to align the road right here. So we were able to work with the developer to get a little bit of space from the HOA to make sure that they can get that street aligned. And it probably provides for a better traffic calming measure as you enter into that development anyway, to have that bend. You see over here where they're proposing the 6 townhomes. We originally asked them to put this street all the way through, but considering the weird angle of this portion of the property and the potential of development on these other parcels in proximity to the 3500 West intersection, we thought that just might be a little bit too close to have another intersection here. Technically, it would be 660 feet apart, so it would be a full block, but maybe we let a little bit more interruption of those blocks come some distance down from a major intersection, which our engineering division really appreciated as well. So in place of that, we just had them put a 10-foot wide pathway there. A couple things to think about. Staff has asked them to change their emergency egress road for phase 1, change that to a 10-foot wide pathway that just buffers the open space parcel over here. That open space parcel will remain. Is proposed to remain, and it's proposed to go to the Park District. And the Park District has mentioned that even though it's small, they're willing to accept this one. They're willing to take it on. And then staff have asked them to put a 5-foot sidewalk around the exterior boundary of this side of the park, just so you get the ability for moms with strollers to go in a circle around that park without having to go through the neighborhood. So a couple of things to look at here. Wetlands. This really is probably not a thing. The developer has already addressed wetlands when they did phase 1. As you can see, phase 1 is done, and they didn't have to do any remediation. So chances of any of these wetlands existing are very slim. They mentioned that the wetland analysis that they did covered the whole property in the first place. So this is probably a non-issue here.
I think the good point on that is, see, it's the freshwater emergent wetland. It's not the actual wetland.
Good call on that. Let's see. Okay, so you got 3 alternatives here. The second alternative lines up with the motion you just made to the Planning Commission. Rezone to R115 for the entire area and use development agreement to modify lot averaging standards in a manner that allows the number of desired townhomes. In the staff report, I'm recommending allowing up to 12. I think the applicant probably stick with 6, but maybe there's an economy where they can do 12. If you guys would rather see them do 6, just limit it to 6, and I'll make that adjustment in the development agreement. A couple of things to think about. There are a couple of pieces of information I give you that I don't translate to the recommendation. I'm just going to let you guys essentially make your own determinations on that. But one of those things is right now along 1800, there are 4-foot wide sidewalks. Our current code calls for 5-foot wide sidewalks. Kind of a hard ask to tear out all that sidewalk and replace it with a 5-foot, but it's really a question for you guys to answer on whether or not that's something you would want to do. It's not listed in the staff recommendation, so if it's something you want to apply, make sure it's part of your recommendation. Keeping in mind the other side of 1800, there will be a 10-foot wide pathway at some point in the future. And technically our standard does say if you have a 10-foot pathway on one side, you can get away with 4 feet on one side. Might change in time as we start looking at how these collector streets develop. I mean, if we're asking people to boogie across the road pretty quick to get to the 10-foot wide pathway so they don't have to walk on the shoulder to shoulder on the 4-foot wide, or single file, excuse me, on the 4-foot wide, then that could become a safety issue at some point in time. So just think about that. Design options for the townhomes.
Charlie, can I ask you on
Yeah,
that point? Sorry,
please.
just refresh my memory. Is that current sidewalk already all the way up to where this is undeveloped right now? The open
It's
space?
yeah. So
Okay.
they improved their entire frontage.
Okay.
Yep, across. Another thing to think about is the design for those townhomes. So if we're not facing the townhomes to the street and complementing the street with townhomes on the other side, it's probably better to try and seek some design standards on those townhomes that make them look a little more like single-family dwellings. So one thing I would recommend you do, add on to the, it's not in the staff recommendation, add on to it to say flip the townhomes around so they face inward, and then make sure that the back of it is designed in a way that it avoids repetition and redundancy. So it doesn't look so much like a townhome, it just looks like the back of the house. And then you'll just have a large house that fits in with the rest of the homes that are in there, hopefully. They'll still be connected. Yep. Yeah, it'll be one building that from the street, from the back, just looks like a single family dwelling. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you might even have on the other side of the fence, you might have little yards fenced out differently. You might have different back doors, but from the street itself, you shouldn't be able to notice that from the, over the fence, if that makes sense.
From the street, you want the townhome to appear
As, yep, from the rear. Yep. Yep. And we can work with the developer on what kind of design that is, but I think if they just avoided the cookie cutter, copy and paste design for each unit, I think that would help, at least from the exterior perspective. And then fencing and design standards. We actually haven't had a lot of discussions about this. We didn't have a discussion about it on the item that we just talked about. And I think I'm going to make sure that we have more discussions about this as we move forward. At some point in time, you're going to see fences on both sides of these corridors. And they're probably going to be 6 foot tall fences. Right now, our codes only allow for up to 4 feet unless it's 30 feet away from the street. So at some point, we're going to need to adjust our fence standard to allow them to be higher if the lot has double frontage. But then we're also going to want to maybe decide on a design theme for these fences, so you don't have different fence, just patchwork fence as you drive down that road.
But we would have setbacks for any roads going in it. Anytime there's road coming in and out, we wouldn't have a 6 foot fence right next to it.
So yeah, we have site triangle requirements. They'd have to meet those still. Yep. Yeah, so they can either cut the corner off their lot, or they can bring the fence down, or whatever it is. Yeah, certainly something that we should take into consideration. I wrote others because I meant to come back to this and make sure I wrote actually what others are, and I guess I didn't get to do that today. I apologize. There are a couple other things in the staff report, if you guys gleaned onto them, that you may want to add in as conditions of approval to go into the development agreement. It's been good working with this developer. There's a lot that we're asking of them, but I don't think, based off of what you looked at in your last, the rezone before or the rezones in last month, that we're asking too much. Just a question of whether or not you guys are comfortable making the change and making the leap from open space easement, which when they replat this, it'll have to the county will have to vacate the open space easement in exchange for these residences. On that subject, staff report does talk about their parks contribution. We got a letter from the Parks District. They said that they are comfortable with a $5,000 per lot, or probably say unit, contribution. What that didn't consider is all of the lots that are already there. And so working with the applicant, we thought maybe a $2,000 per lot for the entire 40 acres, or per unit for the entire 40 acres, would put a little bit more in the park district's pockets to help them offset the difference for the open space that they're now removing. And then they'll also donate that small park to the park district as well. Any questions?
I have one quick question, Charlie. Can you tell me what you can use open space for? Can it be a park? Does it just need to be pasture? Like, what are the stipulations with open space?
It really depends on what kind of open space it is, but generally speaking, if it has a conservation easement on it, it could be individually owned as long as it's 5 acres or greater, contiguous with another 5 acres for a total of 10. If it's so that's individually owned, you could have it as HOA open space, you could have it as park space. It probably sums up Yeah, I think that's all it is from our cluster subdivision code.
Okay.
But if it's just open space, like we have an open space zone, you could have a golf course. So open space doesn't mean you can't have anything in it. You know, you might have a pro shop if it's a golf course kind of stuff. It's just predominantly open.
Okay.
And I would personally exclude parking lots from open space, but not everybody sees it that way. Some people think the parking lot is a good open space area. And then you've also, in your general plan, we've got several different types of open space. We've got agricultural open space, we've got parks and recreation open space, and then we have natural open space. So I've probably just explained all the open spaces.
Great, thank you.
And all of it except for the asphalt parking lot is a great place to grow weeds.
All right. There's a few that are open space that are taken care of in their, ag space that look really nice in those areas. So,
Yeah,
like
for
right
sure.
across the street from this to the east, there's one.
Yep, for sure. Any other questions?
One, and I just want to point out, because this actually just come to light in my head and then the light just finally clicked. So this is different than some of the other proposals we've seen on developing open space because we are looking at the entire thing. We're doing away with that, I'm going to say stupid or horrible PRUD that we had back in the day that needed to go away and actually doing something right here.
That's right.
So that's the difference in this one in, say, Halcyon's proposal of just developing their open space.
Yep.
We're rezoning the entire
Yep.
the entire subdivision. Phase 1 and 2 will all go into 115. So that was something that
That was I was just going to ask
yes,
that. Okay.
that's what's different here, and that puts a different opinion in my head.
But on the Halcyon, it seemed like we had some discussion about changing the entire subdivision to a different zone, to the R115 zone.
The homeowners were against it.
And we had
There you go.
opposition to that.
Yep.
So
And honestly, if the homeowner showed up to be against this, it may be a reason to deny the whole rezone request. To the developers,
There's only one home.
to the developer's benefit, he had mentioned to me that he's got it in the contract for the sales of each of those lots that if the county ever allows the open space to be developed, that they won't protest. So it's probably why we see
Get
what
that
we
in
have.
his original contract.
Mhm.
wow.
So the
That was
landowners
smart.
next door are fully aware that there's a possibility that this area could
Were
be
they
rezoned and
notified?
developed. Say it again.
Were they notified?
Yes. So everyone within 500 feet of the property were notified. It was a good stack. Surprised nobody stuck around.
500. I didn't realize there was that many people.
Okay. Well, you figure all them lots within it. That's 50 of them. All right. Let's go to our public hearing and get that checked off the board. Then we can get back to the discussion before I forget to do it.
Chair, I'd like to make a motion to open public hearing.
Got a motion. Do we got a second? Motion and second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we're now in public hearing on this item.
Pat, come on down.
Lance, don't fall asleep. We're almost done. All right. Anybody wish to speak on this item? Okay, seeing none, I'll accept the motion to close public hearing.
Motion to close public hearing.
I got a second.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, now we can have some discussion. All right, Charlie, a couple things I wanted to discuss. So, in my opinion, well, correct me if I'm wrong. Now that we're changing this, it's got to apply to all applicable current ordinances, right?
Mhm. That's correct.
So, I mean, as much as I don't want to see all that cement along there get tore out, but if the new ordinance is 5 feet, then I think that does need to be done.
I see. So you do have the opportunity to allow for the 4 feet if you desire to do so. We can do that through a development agreement. So that's one of the reasons why I bring it up. Because from my perspective, at the very least, the frontage of the open space parcel should be improved to that 5 foot wide sidewalk. But then that leaves a bunch or a little bit left from the
Go to
phase
that
1
picture.
that would be 4 foot.
Please.
Say it again.
Go to the picture. Yes, this one. So what if we did a trade-off and made them do 10 feet across the front of the open space in the detention basin and leaving the other 4 feet?
That'd be up for the applicant. And the applicant may want to address you on some other items anyway, so you may want to have that discussion with them.
So just say, where's the 4 feet?
So the 4 feet goes along this whole thing.
Oh, the whole thing is only 4 feet. Oh, okay.
This part becomes 10.
So this is the existing.
Yes,
No, this is the existing development.
but
But they improved the whole street when
They
they
did.
did it.
They did.
yes. Okay, we can discuss that further in a minute. My next one is the parks and the open space. So the parks district's willing to take the open space area there in the middle. What's going to happen to the detention basin though?
The detention basin of phase 1 will be expanded to allow for phase 2 as well. Park will just go with the detention basin.
So the parks district's willing to take on the detention basin, or because it says here it's going to still be owned and maintained by the HOA?
My understanding it was going to be the park district, but that may change.
I just want to make sure it's lands at least, zero-scaped or something, so it's not a weed mess.
Sure. So what we could do in the development agreement is we could say, we're talking about a pathway that goes around the exterior of that park area. Well, sidewalks and pathways. Recommendation talks about trees and benches as well. So we could say have these minimum standards going to the park district when you donate the park, or as otherwise negotiated by the park district. And that's usually how we write most of those development agreements, because we don't want to be on the wrong side when the park district gets to the final negotiation table.
And from my understanding, and I believe this was done in work sessions, it was either going to be $5,000 per lot on the new stuff or $2,000 per lot for all lots.
On the whole, that's right.
Oh, it is? Oh, thanks. I must have.
So I am recommending 2,000 per lot on all of them.
Okay. As a donation. Okay.
Do you remember the difference in total?
I do. It's written down somewhere. But ultimately, if they were to rearrange this concept, so it does show lot boundaries. I usually discourage developers from showing those lot boundaries because they can rearrange them to go smaller. So they could potentially get more residences out of this. We'll make sure it's capped to whatever the total area, the 40 acres divided by 15,000 square feet. So we'll make sure that they don't go over that number. But I guess what I'm saying is we probably shouldn't lock them into a specific number because they may be able to squeeze a lot in here or there. And then we want to make sure they're paying on that extra.
I'd say generally, I think we would ask $3,000 per lot, but they are giving an additional contribution. So balancing out what. So I guess because all the calculations we did before, we need $3,000 per lot to develop things, but they're giving a small developed parcel in addition to the 2,000 per lot that can go to other park spaces. So I'm okay with that.
That's what I saw as well in my findings, and absent any other information from the park district when they looked at this, it seemed like a pretty equitable exchange.
Any other questions for staff? Questions for the developer? Or does he got anything he wants to add? Mr. Rumsey? Rumsey. I was right the first time. Should have stuck with it.
I'd like to thank Charlie. Wade Rumsey, 7550 South, 35 West, Idaho Falls. Yeah, I think Charlie did a great job in terms of just laying it out. I think he's really reflected the stuff that we've talked about. The only thing that we had kind of looked at was the sidewalk along the frontage. We put in a 4-foot. That's a lot of concrete to rip it all out. I do understand the change of ordinances, so, and plus we're obviously willing to work with Lance in the parks to make that something really nice and suitable for that, that as well. So, and the no donation. So, really, from the developer standpoint, when we look at the pathway, we think the 10-foot, the yellow is 10 foot wide, right? We as developers don't see the reason why to do a wraparound because it's a 10-foot wide there. You hit the 1800 South. Yes, it does help you're not traveling through the neighborhood again, but it just seems like an excessive amount of pedestrian walkway for us in terms of that area there, because there will be sidewalks throughout the entire subdivision and phase 1. It just seems like a lot of pedestrian connection there, and we are satisfying that. It just seems a little bit heavy, if you will, that, that the frontage is going to have to be, 5 foot or 10 foot. I mean, that's, we're going to do a 10 foot between the townhome and the lots, which we think will create a great kind of natural barrier or division. We're totally on board with Charlie's recommendation on those townhomes being kind of complied to what you would like to see there. Absolutely on board with that. And so those are just some initial thoughts I have.
On that sidewalk replacement, it's pretty substantial. Would you be willing to give half of the cost of that or make a donation of half of the cost of that to the Parks District?
It's a good thought. It's a really good thought. I could certainly take that on board. I think looking at that, so in looking at the numbers, I don't know what that looks like.
Yeah.
Initially, yes, I think we could work that out to see.
Just kind of struck me that might be something that is kind of a workaround to that issue.
No, I think that's a good thought to explore.
Yeah, you're talking several.
Yeah, for 1 feet of concrete, the construction hassle, I don't think the residents will be really happy with the being
You'd
torn
have
out.
to tear it out and replace it.
Yeah.
Jointing that, it'd be a mess.
It won't be pretty if you just add a foot. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It'd be a full replacement, but that is a good idea to at least entertain or have the discussion with.
Well, since it's part of the new ordinance, there ought to be some happy medium there.
Well, and you're getting how many houses that you wouldn't have gotten otherwise.
Correct.
But it's perfect land for.
I don't disagree. I think this is my I guess maybe this is
Almost your backyard.
But this is my heartburn with it is I have mixed emotions. I think that this is the perfect thing, that this land should have something like this. So we said in the work session, I hold to that. However, I have had citizens come to me and say, if it was designated as open space, it should stay open space, because we have people, those residents, that have bought around it knowing that that was going to be always open space. So that's why I have heartburn. For this, I feel like it's appropriate, but there's other ones that I don't. And my fear is that we're setting the precedent that, oh, it happened here, so it should be able to be applied everywhere else. And maybe I'm
But
off.
we
but
are
that's-
going to do that. That's exactly what we're saying.
Commissioner, maybe this helps. I don't know if it does or not. But every one of these items that is legislative stands on its own.
Yeah.
And so to me, that's how I look at it. It's every one of these has its own merits and demerits. And we have to go through them one at a time, just like we're doing, and address those items as they come to us.
I think where he's got it covered in his purchase agreement, it's fine.
Well, and I think the difference of this one is, and that's where kind of changed my opinion on it. We're looking at the whole development. All of these lots, basically, we're changing the whole 40-acre piece, not just what was designated open space. And I think that's a big difference in my mind, because he did it the right way, because he put that in as a clause in his deal. But I think if we see this come back again, it's going to be fought for the reason of, those people aren't going to they won't be in favor of the rezone of their lot in the subdivision because of the open space. So I think that's where the kind of the
Well, these
difference
guys
is in
from
my-
California are pretty smart. I mean,
Idaho.
Please don't say California.
He's better. He's Idaho.
He copied somebody from California.
So,
Hey.
but anything else for the developer?
Just to clarify, so the part of the pathway you think is excessive is the 5-foot pathway that is adjacent to the existing development. So not the 5 foot along the main road, and then not the 10-foot, because that has to be the egress. It's just the blue dotted line, that 5-foot pathway along the existing development that seems excessive.
That's my
Okay.
thoughts. Yeah, that's correct.
Can I ask Charlie a question about that, Chair?
You bet. Well, are we done with developers'
Oh, sorry,
questions?
sorry. Any more?
All right. Thanks, Mr. Rumsey.
Thank you.
Charlie, you're up. You're not on deck no more. Batting for.
And so the purpose of the pathway to there, because I can kind of see the excessiveness, just because you can, if you're looking for a loop to walk that's safe, you can walk into the development and then circle right back to that yellow road and make a loop. is there a different reason that we'd want that 5-foot pathway along just within the path?
Not in my
Park?
perspective. No, I just think it's a way to loop that open space area. It's certainly not needed or absolutely necessary. It's more of a amenity. And if you'd rather see it not there, let's not put it on.
I'm just thinking about the privacy of the backyards of those neighbors, and they might rather people were diverted to the front. But then at the same time, when it's in the backyard, it's easier to walk because you don't have driveways to worry about. So I don't know.
So
People are using it.
back up and ask a question. Charlie, what is the Parks District taking on here? Are they taking on that retention pond and this other area south? Are they taking on that whole open area that's surrounded by the sidewalk and the pathway?
It's my understanding.
Okay.
Lance looks confused on that.
So
better
yeah,
talk
We
to
may
Lance.
want to ask Lance.
can we ask Lance that question? Is Lance willing to give us an answer to that question?
Thank you, Commissioners. Lance Peterson, Taylor West Weaver Park District. In our discussions, I'm sorry, Bryn, this might be a 5-minute one. Okay, so.
Oh, Lord.
Lance is
6
5 minutes. and
minutes.
35.
I knew we should have took a bathroom break before we started.
You're gonna hear a bell ring.
I'm sorry, guys. When we first met with Wade and Igor, we met out there and we got talking about, there's going to be a little open space there. And I said, well, you know what? Donate that to us and we'll take it on. Why have to create a homeowners association? It's small. And the hope was, as we talked to them, is that if that basin is not deep and wet and muddy, we could have a nice grassy park area there for little kiddies to play in. And we could put a little playground area there, have a nice walkway around the park. I was kind of having a little bit of a heart attack for a minute and I didn't understand, Andrew, when you were saying that donate the park, the pathway. Is that what you were talking about to the park and the 4-foot cement sidewalk along the road?
Well, no, what I was talking about was replace the 4-foot sidewalk along the road, half of the cost to replace it to 5-foot and make a cash donation to the Parks District.
Instead of making it 5 foot.
What?
Instead of making the entire length of that sidewalk from the west end of the subdivision all the way up to the east end of it.
Yeah.
Right along 1800 South.
Yeah.
Which is the blue
See, the new
checkered part
code
on the-
for that is that it should be a 5-foot.
Yeah.
So in lieu of ripping out that 4-foot that's already been installed, figure out what the cost would be to do it in 5-foot. And then instead of taking it out and actually doing the project, just making a donation to the Parks District for half of that cost.
Oh,
Free
okay.
money, just say yes.
Okay, man, I thought you were saying donate the cement to them and we'd have to rip it out. I'm like,
No.
okay.
The question
Burden on the Parks District.
I wanted to ask you is it important to the Parks District to have this sidewalk, around the park where the blue dash is around this stepped area here?
Okay, so the plan was, see, we haven't, this is the first we've seen of this latest version here, and we haven't had a chance to talk to Wade and Igor about it. So I'm not really keen on a cement sidewalk pathway, maybe an asphalt one or something like that, or maybe some more natural material.
There's
But
one already
definitely-
there, though.
What's that?
There's one already there.
There's
in the
one
back
already
of
there.
it.
Okay.
Only along the road.
Only
Yeah.
along the road. So I would just love to sit down with Wade and Igor and figure this out. But yes, we're willing to take that on as a small little neighborhood park. It's about what, 4.5 acres?
It's a pretty good size.
Okay. And I know Roger was adamant about 5 acres, and I'm not so set on that. If we can provide for a nice little parkway with a playground there and a walkway around there for that neighborhood, and have it be open to Stagecoach across the street, I'm just hoping and praying that that doesn't need to be too deep and become a muddy hole. Hopefully we can have grass in there and the kids can play in there and it'll stay dry. From the indications are it's stayed pretty dry, but maybe there's something we can do with the gateway coming in and out of it, the orifice, and reconstructing that so that it doesn't stay muddy maybe. But all of those things are things I'm just looking forward to sitting down with Wade and Igor and talking through and working that out.
So
I
Lance,
haven't put the pencil to it yet.
So Lance, you're willing to, the Parks District is willing to take that on?
Yeah, we will.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I've got a brainstorm when you're ready, Chair.
I have something.
Oh, I mean, my only 2 cents on this is it's just like, let the Parks District work it out with them and come back, with an acceptable, agreeable solution for both what the Parks District agrees to, what the developer agrees to, and then that's what goes in the development agreement. That's my 2 cents on that, but yes.
There was discussion on, do we need this? I feel like if it's going to be a park, it should have a trail around it. Doesn't have to be this squared off, thing, but I feel like it should be accessible to the public. If not, if people aren't using it, it's going to turn into one of those eyesores that we've talked about. So it needs to be accessible.
And that's what I say, hearing the size of the park, I think it would be advantageous to have that go wrap all the way around, just so that when kids are playing, you're in sight of everyone. But parking would be an issue. So the swap I would consider would be just parking along the frontage of the park in lieu of changing out the sidewalk. And so just, asphalt.
Where would they park though? We don't want them parking on 1800,
No, they'd be parking off of 1800.
but that's a detention basin.
Well, that's
It's
the
already built.
question, is how big is the detention
Well, then you'd
basin?
have to move the sidewalk.
If we'd have the sidewalk,
That's not a bad thought.
it would drop down.
Still
I mean,
requires
the sidewalk
takeout
would
there.
drop down and then you'd have parking along there and then pick back up.
Parallel parking in.
Yeah, some sort of parallel parking. You guys know the
You
area
don't want
better.
parking on, I mean,
It'd be too
it's
crazy.
going to be an 80-foot right-of-way road. We don't want parking anywhere close to parallel parking yes. Parking's not a concern
Okay.
because you got,
It's like nearly 5 acres. So like 4 or 5 spots, I think would be.
where are you going to put them? Because you can't put them off 1800.
Let's just say the people in
Unless
this
you lose a lot.
subdivision can use it for their private soccer field.
Exactly. That and the folks across the street in Stagecoach, that's
Yeah.
160
Well,
lots.
people will be parallel
120.
parking on 1800 if we don't provide parking. That's what parks do.
I think for the time being, until 1800 gets fully developed, I don't see a problem with it.
Can I ask one question that might be applicable?
Mhm.
Lance, one word answer. How many acres is the park that's just down to the west of this?
Almost 9.
Okay,
Or
thank you.
just over 9.
Thank you.
We're
He did it for you, Lance. You didn't even- Okay.
We're
Just
working,
over 9.
We're talking half the size of that park.
We've got a rezone application to triple that
Yeah.
size.
Okay. So it may get bigger down there. Okay.
To you, but this is gonna be close to other people.
No, there's going to be plenty of development around here it's essentially a pocket park is what is in Taylor, in their master plan is anything 5 acres or less is a pocket park, which a pocket park I don't feel needs parking.
Right. It's going to be great for what's proposed there with these townhomes. It's going to be great for them to walk to it.
We'll throw the
Need-
plan up
need
there
for a lot of
again.
parking.
I'd like to see the lot that's on the opposite side of the pathway absorbed. No, not this plan, but lot 22. We could, that when the pathway goes it kind of cuts off the park. And so it'd be nice if that was absorbed into the other lots. So keep the amount of lots, but absorb it in on the other side.
That's a good point.
This one right here.
This one right here. And then make that where you can have a couple of, I think 3 or 4 parking spots are necessary.
Up your kids, right?
Or if you're meeting friends there, they live in this development and that's where they want to meet. I just think they're
I'm
going to
agreeing
have
with you,
a couple Not a lot, but a few parking spots I think are necessary.
That's good. It's
What's
off
the north-south
1800 too.
dimension on that lot?
But you're too
Charlie?
close to an intersection to put a back, if you're gonna put
Yeah.
parking along there, it's way too close to an intersection.
It's about 80.
Well, can they enter from the street? I mean, from the street that's in the community?
So then you get into the situation like you in Highlands that we heard a lot of complaining about how the parking lot comes out and you got the road there.
Well, I don't like this corner to begin with at all, so I think it's all.
But
crazy.
I'm not in favor of parking. It's a pocket park. It's a detention basin at the most.
Maybe we could just say that they consider looking at options for parking in our proposal, or not in our proposal.
And that's up to the Parks District to
Right.
decide and the developer, in my
consider.
opinion.
We'll just wait and see. I don't live there.
It's probably gonna be. It's probably gonna be.
Detention basins have a way of detaining water.
Pocket park.
Yeah, pocket park, because the big park is just down the road. How far, Lance?
Half
About a mile.
Say the big park you're gonna develop down on Rope's place is how far? Pocket park.
But if it grows,
Closer. So basically it's right there at the 4075 and you're talking right here. So it's that parcel right there's the park. So yeah. That's a huge cost that
Located.
doesn't need to be incurred, right? Well, okay, let's get back on topic. It's 8:00. And for some reason they turned the heater on in here and it's getting hot. Normally we're freezing by this point. Or maybe it's, yeah. Okay. Discussion, any further from staff, thoughts, concerns on the rezone proposal for this? Charlie's got lots of stuff in his recommendations.
Yeah, and anything in there
I
that you
like
feel
the
like is too much, we
recommendations.
can cancel any of it. I mean, whatever you guys want to do.
we beat you down.
I think it was just one more condition he suggested we add was to flip the townhomes to face inward and make the back appear as a single family home.
Yeah.
That was the only thing that's not included.
Yeah, unless you guys want to do something about fencing. I don't know what the answer is because it seems like fencing, we want to look at it from a more community perspective.
Form base makes that fencing question real easy.
It does. It does. Absolutely.
Then it changes the roads and everything else. I put the form-based thing away, so we don't have to talk about that one no more.
I can't help it. I like
We put the fence up, it would be out of the right of way you need for the street, I assume. That's all cleared up. So there wouldn't be questions of, oh, I want my fence all the way over here or all the way over there.
That's right. Yeah, they dedicated enough space for an 80-foot wide right of way with the original subdivision.
If they put the fence up right now, there'll be a big weed patch between the fence and the road.
It's true. Yeah, nobody maintain it.
But it will be the responsibility of the future lot owners, correct?
Correct.
To maintain that.
What's behind their back fence?
Uh-huh.
I can tell you that's not going to happen. I've seen it in South Ogden.
That's Iris's job.
Charlie, do you
That's
have
exactly
any suggestions for fencing that we're going to standardize to?
Not yet, but I do.
We're going to open that can of worms again. Remember about 4 years ago when we started that fencing discussion?
I do think it's worthwhile, and I do think it's going to come down to, so part of the general plan talks about small area plans and putting together some community themes and identity through that process. I think that's an exercise worth going down when we're fully staffed. So we might.
You're
wanna
only
wait a little
down one guy. Come on.
Well,
just kidding.
Soon to be June.
Oh, and yeah. Yeah. Okay. So if we put it in the development agreement that we want at least a minimum of a 6-foot fence instead of the 4-foot fence, would that supersede
Yes.
the
Well,
ordinance?
Yeah, what we would
or
do
trump
is
the ordinance
we would
because
say,
it's in the
despite what the
development agreement.
ordinance says, we want a 6-foot fence there. Yep.
I do think we need to put that in there.
Okay. Any particular material?
Chain link.
Okay. Chain link.
Yeah. Yeah. Don't mess around with vinyl
Okay.
because
Well,
they don't last. And
Joe will
especially in
get
front of a
mad.
park.
Do a
If someone wants a
commercial
nice
grade
looking
too.
fence in their backyard, or they want to
And-
actually sell these townhomes to people.
And if somebody wants it vinyl coated, I'm perfectly okay with that too, but I don't care one way or the other, but it should be chain link.
How about aesthetically pleasing?
That's for standard, but it could be negotiated per project. And landowner.
Because like you could do one of those fancy little rock like prefab concrete fences that you
could.
look pretty good.
And that'd look really nice. I don't know what the cost of that is.
I don't either.
And that's why I wasn't going that direction.
Another 80 condos in there.
Yeah.
That is a discussion point we're having with the guys who have 1,400
I
acres
want-
across the river, but
Sarah,
we're not
I
there
want
here on this side of the
cinder
river.
block wall.
It's just hard to do on a small 40 by 40
see it.
acre pieces as you're going down the road.
Well, the problem is getting everything matched up on all four corners
Yep.
as we go forward.
Well, but if we go, so now I'm going to throw a wrench in all this, even the fencing part of it. If we're making them face the 1800 with the fronts of those townhomes, you don't want to put a fence in front of that now because it's going to.
Backs.
That's going to be against 1800.
So they don't.
But I
enter
thought
on the corner.
it was going to look from the 1800 side
Like the back
like
of
the house.
Like the back of a residence. That's right.
So it doesn't matter that the front door's on the other side.
Right.
Okay.
Unless
All
it
right.
matters to you.
No.
I think they'd also want
Okay.
Now we're getting too far.
So what are we doing with the fence? Yes or no, we're leaving it?
It needs a fence. You guys can hash out the.
And a mural. Why not? Kidding. Sorry, I'm tired.
So this is one of the reasons why it's not in the recommendation. It's just a discussion point because I couldn't nail it down myself.
Why don't we leave it up to staff to work it out
All right.
at a different time, but at least a minimum of a 6-foot fence along the 1800 corridor.
Fair enough.
They will work that out in the development agreement. How about that? Everyone agreeable with that?
Yes, sir.
Director Grover's tired. He's good with it.
Charlie don't want more work, but we're just going to push it back on them to determine.
Notice my gums haven't been flapping very much.
A minimum
go
of a
home.
6-foot fence along the 1800 corridor.
I guarantee he doesn't want chain link.
No chain link.
So then it
I
trumps
down
the
horse.
ordinance, so at least it gets put in.
Sell them. I know. It looked at.
Okay. We beat this one to death in a lot of different ways. Months, years in the making. Where do we want to do with it? Charlie, give us some options.
As far as your
No, I'm just saying you have given us some options.
yeah. Okay.
I don't need any
What?
more.
Do you want me to go over it
Has
again?
given us some options.
We can approve, we can deny, we can table. And basically, yeah, see what he's got there. And alternate 2 is the one we're going with because alternate 1's off the table. Okay, I'll accept a motion if you guys are ready.
I move we forward a positive recommendation to the County Commission for file ZMA 2024-02, an application to rezone approximately 40 acres of land located at approximately 3679 West, 1800 South, from the A1 zone to the R115 zone. I do so with the recommendations included in our packet from staff with 2 additional recommendations. One, that the town, conditions. Yes, these are the conditions, yes. The conditions, it's a recommendation, but it's conditions, thank you. So adding to the 6 conditions included in the packet, the 7th condition would be that the townhomes are flipped to face inward towards the community, leaving the back side of the community on 1800. And the appearance of the townhomes, the back side of the townhomes on 1800 should appear as a single family home. And condition number 8, that the development agreement include a minimum of a 6-foot fence along the 1800 corridor, and the details of this fence to be negotiated by staff. I also do this with the findings included in our packet, findings 1 through 3.
I have got a motion. Do I got a second? Got a motion and a second. Commissioner Klontz,
Aye.
Commissioner Neville,
Aye.
Commissioner Wickern,
Aye.
Commissioner Favero,
Aye.
Commissioner Andriotti,
Aye.
Commissioner McCormick. Chair votes aye as well. That passes. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Next item, public comments for items not on tonight's agenda. Seeing none, remarks from the planning commissioners.
I will be very quick with this, but this is important just because we're in the legislative session. Our legislators seem to be swayed by a lot of developers. Not pointing fingers at anyone in this room. I've liked what we've seen today, but it's specifically, I mean, House Bill 507. It's about the division of our water. 306 is weird too, but 507 is one of them. There are a lot. I mean, they're proposing a lot of legislation that limits what cities can charge for impact fees. And every time we get rid of impact fees, we are charging the citizens. And I don't understand why they keep using verbiage to make it sound like the cities are out to get us. But the cities don't have money. The citizens are the piggy bank of the city. And when we don't require impact fees and we're getting rid of impact fees, we are just charging the existing residents and making it so that people buying new homes are getting a discount on their homes and existing residents are paying for those. Now, all of those impact fees by law are required to be analyzed. So when there is a water fee that has gone into extensive investigation that is required so that we know how much that development is impacting the water system. And it's not just the pipes that get there, it's about the water storage requirements. So we build a bunch of new development that requires more water storage. There could be a $5 million water tank that if we don't ask for impact fees, that's the current residents that have to pay for the water for all those new homes. And I agree with the residents here, or one of the residents in particular that said, affordable housing isn't new housing. New housing is not going to be affordable. If we build more new housing, then the existing housing becomes affordable. And that's what we need to focus on, is making sure that homes will sell at market value no matter what. And we need to make sure that those impact fees are collected so that we're not increasing the price of living for the existing homes and inflating the fees to the residents. The city, the piggy bank are the residents. And I just wish our legislators would pay attention to that. So several different.
But that's not 507 though, either.
In 507, there's one provision. So there's a law in there, but there's one provision that for some reason it gets rid of the impact fees for water, along with everything else. That other issues
Or a
with that one.
stormwater.
It's a
bill.
stormwater one, but then for some reason they weave in, and you don't have to pay a water impact fee for these certain dwellings. And it makes no sense. So they also
Look at it again.
don't want, right now we have federal laws to affecting our stormwater, and we as smaller municipalities can regulate specific to our community what kind of stormwater requirements we need. And they're trying to make it very difficult for us to impose anything more stringent than the federal government, which is a blanket stormwater ruling that involves the entire country. We're not supposed to make specific rulings for our own small community. And so instead of allowing us to do it as an ordinance for community-wide, where we know the stormwater requirements we need for our community, they want us to address it at each individual
Actually, it's taking it more
development.
back to the state. Right now, it is on each individual development. There's a requirement of an 80% on-site retention. And what 507 changes is anything within the Great Salt Lake Basin for a long-term stormwater feature, it pulls that back.
To the
What they're
state?
trying to do is put more water in the lake through this bill, essentially. And pulling back the infiltration of the stormwater, which is actually, in my opinion, a good thing. But what it's stating as far as nothing's changing on the stormwater requirement as far as what EPA regulates or it transitions into what the Utah Construction General Permit or any of that has, other than the fee structures changing. And in my opinion, it's going to be a lot more headache on the state and the division, because it's taking the fee from $150 to a $500 fee, which the state retains $150. Then the state has to give the local jurisdiction back $350 of that for each application that's brought through. And then on top of that, it more puts across the board the penalty structure for violations in relation to the stormwater. Say you're not following what's in your SWIP, and there's issues within it. Like UDOT now, we just changed our specs to raise it to up to a $10,000 a day violation, which is in line with what state has. What this bill does, it actually gives the developer more leniency to move through and, well, give them 3 days. Well, if they don't do it in that 3 days, they get an additional 3 days. If they don't do it, then they get a $300 fine, and then it goes to a $500 fine, and then a $1,000 fine is what's in the bill as far as the stormwater regulation goes.
So I interpret some things different, so we'll have to talk after.
Yeah, we can.
My concern is more just the attack on the impact fees and a huge misunderstanding on where that money comes from and where it goes.
Which I'd have to read it further because I don't remember the impact fee, but I could have missed over it because I was more glancing on the stormwater portion.
Okay.
Sorry.
That's all.
I got one thing on impact fees. I tend to agree, but I think most of them are shook with the 8-ball. Water, 13,000. And so what I'm thinking is if there's science behind it, I'm all for it. But let's get rid of the 8-ball.
Good point.
Okay, I'm done.
Thanks.
I'll show you my
All right. Anything else? Director Grover, before anyone else goes, I'm skipping.
Just a couple things. June is retiring, and her
Can we
retirement.
pass a rule that that can't happen?
I know, I agree.
All those in favor of June can't retire?
Done.
I think that was unanimous from everyone.
Nope, I say nay. She's earned it.
But we are having a retirement party for her on the 27th between 1 and 3 if you would like to come. So just FYI. And
27.
Planning Commission dinner
1 and 3.
is reminder the 22nd. If you haven't replied to June on that and you still want to come, I'll take the heat from them. We can still make it work. So, and then street tree ordinance that got approved with the county commission. So I just wanted to update you on that. That's all I got.
I'm so glad them trees are behind us.
Me too.
We're getting pretty nitpicky.
What's wrong with sagebrush?
There's nothing wrong with trees. But as soon as mama moves in, she wants a tree. I don't.
Okay.
Okay, we're done. We
Liam.
don't need to regulate that.
You're done? Stick a fork in him. He's out. Hey, did we do a good job tonight? Oh, good. We didn't get in trouble by legal. I'm not ready for it yet. Just kidding. Motion to adjourn.
I just want to know how the training went for us that we had with Ogden Valley. Are we getting it yet?
Are you getting it?
Yeah, we've been trained by them to get in here and get with it and make it go to 10 at night.
My heck, you guys have had it for a long time. You guys
Hey,
are amazing.
we've been good for a while.
Yeah.
A
We haven't had
long time.
It's been a long time since we had a late meeting. This is the latest our meeting's been for a while. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second, all those in favor?
Second. Aye.
See ya.